Chapter 364. Second update. Regardless of whether Kiki misled Fong Beibei, or made Fong Beibei even more confused, Fong Beibei's mood improved a lot after being stood up by Poplar Fruit. She could finally concentrate on reading her book. As for Poplar Fruit, he walked into the 8th prison that made many people's expressions change. The metal door behind him creaked and closed again. After the metal door closed, the light in the 8th prison grew dimmer. It was still daytime, so the detention center didn't turn on the lights. Poplar Fruit stood in place for a while to adjust himself. Only then did he see the situation in the 8th prison through the high window in the afternoon sunlight. In the 8th prison, there were 6 people other than himself. At this time, they were all sitting on their respective beds and looking at him coldly. The top bunk near the door was the one with the best air and hygiene conditions. There was a tall and burly man sitting on it. Poplar Fruit felt that this guy should be about 1.95 meters tall. His muscles were very strong, and he was much taller than himself. His thick thighs were resting on the edge of the bed and shaking gently. It was a hair-raising sight. One couldn't help but worry that he would shake the bunk bed until it fell apart. The bed closest to the inside was piled with some junk. There was also a thin and weak man sitting on the bottom of the bed. This made Poplar Fruit a little confused. There were a total of 4 bunk beds in the 8th prison. There were 2 bunk beds in each row. There were a total of 8 beds. Even if there were 6 people, there was still an empty bed that was better than this one. Because this bed just happened to be facing the simple toilet that was used for prisoners to relieve themselves. Regardless of whether it was washed clean or not, the smell was unbearable. However, that thin and weak man didn't want to stay on a bed that was slightly better. He just had to stay there. Pa. The prison guard's footsteps at the door gradually faded away. Poplar Fruit was thinking about where he should sit. He Wonjua and Big Brother he wouldn't be able to save him anytime soon. Poplar Fruit could only take one step at a time. Poplar Fruit suddenly realized that as soon as the prison guard left, the thin man in the innermost bed jumped down from the bed with 2 other men, and slowly walked towards Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit looked at them warily and stayed where he was without moving. Haha, it's really a gigolo. No wonder the 5th demon was so excited. A slightly stronger man walking in front laughed, but he was very disdainful. In the eyes of the people in the 8th prison, the people in the other prisons were too weak. No one dared to compare themselves to the people in the 8th prison. The thin and weak man stood behind the 2 men, and looked at Poplar Fruit through the gap between them. He felt that Poplar Fruit seemed to be just a naive student. No matter how he looked at it, he was the type that was easy to bully. He suddenly straightened his back. Boy, tell me, what did you do to get in here? The thin and weak man asked casually. Anyone who knew him could see that he was putting on an act. He was just being careful, but now his tone was so big. Fuck. The slightly stronger man turned around and gave him a slap. This slap was very loud. Chung X Liang, I'm standing here. Do you have the right to speak? Brother Feng, I was wrong. This little one also wanted to save Brother Feng some energy. Chung X Liang was still smiling after being slapped. He nodded and bowed as he apologized. Chung X Liang. He should have committed the crime of rape. Poplar Fruit finally had some understanding in his heart. On the one hand, he was thin and weak and easy to bully. He couldn't beat these prison bullies. On the other hand, the crime he committed made everyone despise and even hate him. Therefore, he was pushed to the worst position. Don't think that all criminals will be treated equally. They are also divided into 3, 6, and 9 classes. For example, rapists are the most inferior and most looked down upon. This place is after all a world where the strong are respected. The more powerful a person is, the more they will be respected. Rapists, what kind of strong person are they if they lay their hands on women? In prison, they are like rats crossing the street. Everyone wants to beat them up. Especially Chung X Liang. He used to be a teacher. In the end, he raped a 5th grade primary school student. This matter was exposed in the detention center. Everyone who saw it disliked him. He was also thrown into the 8th prison to let those evil people teach him a lesson. Now his treatment is still very poor. I didn't commit a crime. Poplar Fruit calmly replied. Haha. The entire number 8 district burst into laughter. Even the sturdiest man laughed in a low, muffled voice. Chang Xliang also seemed to have heard some funny joke. He squatted on the ground and slapped the floor. He laughed until tears came out. The sturdiest man called Brother Feng paused for a moment and then said, "A lot of people who come here say this, but they still obediently confess in the end. Okay, don't dawdle with me. What crime did you commit? Hurry up and say it. Are you afraid that we will leak the secret? We are not the police. Who will care about your trivial matters? I didn't commit a crime." Poplar Fruit ignored their ridicule. Word by word he seriously said, "Motherfucker, you are quite unreasonable. You came to the 8th prison, and you are still so dishonest?" Brother Feng's face suddenly changed. "Brother Feng, since he is so disobedient, let him fish for the goldfish." Chang Xliang's face was full of flattery. He came up to Brother Feng and offered a plan. After Chang X entered the 8th prison, he had been tortured. Today, when he saw that there was someone weaker than him, he was happy. He even hoped that the newcomer would be tortured more severely than him. Only then would he feel happy. Moreover, if Yanggua's status was lower than his, then he would be able to get rid of the dark days of being ordered around by others and be spurned by others. He would be able to live a life of being ordered around. Fish your mother. Brother Feng's temper was fickle. He gave Chang Xliang a loud slap. The two slaps were on the same side of the face. The obviously swollen face became very asymmetrical. Reminder: the next part is a bit heavy. If you don't want to read it, you can directly skip it. I don't want to hear your voice. Don't disgust me. Brother Feng kicked Chang Xliang to the side. See, this is the result of disobedience. Brother Feng pointed at the tip of Poplar Fruit's nose and shouted proudly. Do you know what goldfish is? Brother Feng patted the shoulder of the person next to him and said, Cowboy explained to him. Don't think that we are scaring him. Goldfish was actually a slang in the prison. It was one of the tricks used to torture the newcomer. It meant that the prisoner would throw the big fish, a less direct word, into a bucket or basin, and then pour some water into it. The tortured person would go up and fish it out. After fishing it out, he would let out a sigh. Ah, the goldfish are fished out. Today is still the 6th update. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 365. 3rd update, no need. Poplar Fruit waved his hand. I'm not interested in listening. No matter what the goldfish fishing referred to, Poplar Fruit had no interest in understanding. He was annoyed. When he came out, Poplar Fruit told Feng Beibei that he was just going to see the tutor, and would be back at noon. As a result, he encountered such an incident. Not only was he arrested, but he was also imprisoned. He couldn't get out for a while. He didn't know if Feng Beibei would be worried. His daughter was fine. With Feng Beibei taking care of her, there shouldn't be a problem. Duan Xueqing should be fine. He was arrested for so long, but he didn't see the police bring anyone back. She should have escaped. But why hadn't they followed her instructions and found he daged to save her? Poplar Fruit was in a panic. He didn't consider that his big brother, he often couldn't get through to him. However, Poplar Fruit's impatience made Brother Feng feel embarrassed. Although he wasn't the leader of the 8th prison, he was at least ranked 4th among the 6 people because of his aggressive and fierce character, and the crime of flying car robbery. If it was another prison, he might be the leader. Cowboy, teach him a lesson. Brother Feng was furious and pushed the young man named Cowboy. In the 8th prison, other than the useless Chang Xliang, he could only command Cowboy. The other 3 had taken lives in their hands, so he did not dare to be unreasonable with the outlaws. Cowboy was young, but he had been in society for many years. He often wandered on the bus with his companions to steal. He was a bully. He walked up and found that he wasn't as tall as Poplar Fruit. He was a little unhappy and shouted, in front of Brother Feng and the other big brothers, "Why don't you kneel down?" He jumped up and wanted to slap Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit was quick and grabbed his wrist. As a result, he jumped so high, but he fell awkwardly and almost lost his balance. Cowboy's face darkened. He felt that he had lost a lot of face. He scolded, Aya? You dare to resist? Let go. However, Poplar Fruit didn't let go. His temper rose. Poplar Fruit wasn't stupid. He knew from movies and novels that there was no reason in this kind of place. Only with a strong fist. That's called reason. In the American drama Prison Break, Mishwai used his clever brain to fool everyone. However, that was made up by people. If he wanted to live comfortably, he had to conquer with force. Cowboy pulled his arm, and found that it was stuck between the rocks. He couldn't move Poplar Fruit's right hand. His eyes were red, not because he wanted to cry, but because he felt humiliated and angry. The cowboy stopped talking and went up to Yongwa angrily. He raised his knee and wanted to break Yongwa's balls with one knee. Poplar Fruit's eyes flashed. He slightly moved, grabbed Cowboy's thigh, locked his joint, and then lifted. Poplar Fruit was much taller than Cowboy. With this lift, Cowboy's supporting leg couldn't stand. He was lifted off the ground by Poplar Fruit. Then Cowboy was like a wheel. His whole body was thrown back and fell to the ground. His hind legs swung down and almost hit Chong X, who was still on the ground. Chong X Liang exclaimed and dodged to the side. Although he was embarrassed, he was not as embarrassed as the cowboy who was flipped upside down. The cowboy was lying on the ground. Just now, his nose rubbed against the ground and he groaned in pain. As for the other three people, some of them were sitting there and laughing as if they were watching a good show. Some of them were expressionless. The tall and strong man in the lead looked like he was watching a gladiator show on TV. He had an indifferent expression on his face. Brother Feng's face was red. He sent Cowboy. Not only did he fail, but he was beaten so badly. Not only did he lose face, but he was also angered by Poplar Fruit, who was an unruly newcomer. I'm going to fucking kill you. Brother Feng looked left and right. He grabbed a long, twisted towel that was half dry and half wet. He tied a knot at the end and then roared and threw it at Poplar Fruit. This towel was still very vigorous when swung. The moisture increased the weight of the towel and made it more solid. The whole towel was twisted into an iron rod and then tied into a knot. It was like a lightweight version of a mace. Poplar Fruit didn't want this thing to leave a red mark on his body. He suddenly moved sideways to avoid the towel that Brother Feng threw at him. His right hand grabbed Brother Feng's throat like lightning. This action was too fast. Before Brother Feng had time to react, Poplar Fruit started the next action. Poplar Fruit arched his left leg and drew a circle on the ground with his right leg. He went around Brother Feng's heel and slashed hard. Brother Feng's legs were swept into the air, and Poplar Fruit's right hand grabbed Brother Feng's throat and slammed him to the ground. Brother Feng rushed over and didn't understand what was going on. He fell backward like a cloud. His back hit the cold concrete floor of the prison cell without any protection. He almost lost his breath, but his eyes rolled and he screamed in pain. Poplar Fruit's right hand grabbed Brother Feng's neck, and his left hand wanted to punch Brother Feng's right face. However, he stopped in the end. When his fist was only a few millimeters away from Brother Feng, he stopped. The wind of the punch scared Brother Feng. His pants were wet. Fuck. This is fucking bad luck. Everyone saw the yellow liquid oozing out from Brother Feng's pants. They covered their noses and shouted. Poplar Fruit also retracted his hand in disgust. He quickly moved away from this guy and stood aside. Brother Feng covered his face and lay motionless on the ground. He lost a lot of face today. He was scared to the point of peeing his pants by a newcomer. If this spread out, Brother Feng wouldn't have the face to stay in this detention center. Not to mention the name Brother Feng, he was afraid that his nickname would be related to peeing his pants in the future. Brother Feng was beaten so miserably that the third leader didn't dare to go down. He intuitively felt that he was only a little stronger than Brother Feng. He shouldn't be on the same level as Poplar Fruit, so he was very sensible and didn't dare to be in the limelight. Fuck coward. The second leader looked at the third leader with disdain and jumped down from the upper bunk. He kicked Brother Feng and scolded, "Get out of my way, trash!" Brother Feng rolled to the back. The second leader waved to Chong X Liang and shouted, "Chong X Liang, wipe this place clean. Fuck, you're not smart at all. Be careful or I'll make you squat in the pit again tonight." Chong X Liang hastily ran over and used his own clothes to wipe off the yellow water stains on the ground. He then retreated to the door of the prison cell. This was also Chong X Liang's trick. Prisoners didn't dare to fight at the prison door because it was easy to be caught by the prison guards. He hid in the safest place for fear of being involved. Chapter 366. Fourth update. The moment Poplar Fruit was caught by the big black guy, he knew that he had underestimated his opponent. In other words, the series of easy victories made Poplar Fruit look down on the heroes of the world. It was Poplar Fruit's first time encountering an opponent like the big black guy who was tall, strong, and fast. His previous opponents, whether it was Supin and other Thai boxers from the bank, or Meng Sanhua and other martial arts experts from the special forces, none of them were as tall as Poplar Fruit. Not only was the big black guy much taller than Poplar Fruit, but he was also as tall as the three strong men from the special forces. In terms of strength, Poplar Fruit was confident that he would not lose to anyone. However, he was restrained by the big black guy, so he could not use his strength. Therefore, Poplar Fruit was facing his biggest physical challenge ever since he started practicing martial arts. The big black guy tightened his grip, and Poplar Fruit felt that it was getting harder to breathe. He realized that he could not delay any longer. He had to find a solution quickly, or else he would be strangled to death. Poplar Fruit suddenly shouted. The big black guy thought that Poplar Fruit was going to use his right hand to lift his arms. However, he realized that Poplar Fruit did not use any strength in his hands. Instead, he kicked his legs randomly. Aha! The prisoners in the 8th prison laughed proudly. They thought that Poplar Fruit was just struggling. The big black guy's bear hug shocked the entire detention center, and no one wanted to be hugged by him. Poplar Fruit did not succeed the first time, so he tried again. He used his left hand to grab the prison uniform on the big black man's upper body. His fingernails almost dug into the hem of the uniform. He turned the knob so that the uniform had a better grip and wouldn't slip off easily. Poplar Fruit exerted strength in his waist. Relying on his strong waist and abdomen, Poplar Fruit raised his legs up high. Using the big black guy's arms as the axis, Poplar Fruit folded up. His legs were like sharp swords pointing to the sky. It's useless. The big black guy was exerting strength as well. He held his throat and roared. Then he curled up his arms that were holding onto Poplar Fruit even harder. Poplar Fruit's face started to turn red. It's not over yet. Poplar Fruit shouted in his heart. He used his strength to spread his legs to the sides, as if he was opening up a big fan. At this time, the flexibility of his body that he had trained in Tai Chi showed. His legs were like a professional dancer's, bending into a straight line. The miraculous inverted leg made the prisoners in the 8th prison forget to cheer. They also forgot that the two people in front of them were in a life and death struggle. Poplar Fruit's body performance was like a real artistic performance, and it was breathtaking. Poplar Fruit used his last breath to shout out, and in exchange he gained a new strength. They saw that his legs, which were originally spread out vertically, were now folded horizontally like a fan. Let's not look into how and out of the scope of people's understanding Poplar Fruit's current actions were. At this moment, his legs were like two thick whips, folded up, and solidly slapped near the big black guy's ears. If it were an ordinary person, Poplar Fruit might have twisted his bones or tendons with this kick. However, Poplar Fruit's body was too flexible. Not only did he not feel any discomfort, but the whole process was smooth and smooth. His strength was not reduced at all until the moment of impact. Instead, it became heavier due to inertia. Clang. In the big black guy's perception, Poplar Fruit's kick to him was like his whole body was covered in a big bell, and then heavily hit with a club. Even if the big black guy was a person with thick skin and strong resistance to attacks, his head was still buzzing, and he was dizzy. After receiving such a heavy blow, he did not completely lose control of his body. Although he could no longer hold on to Poplar Fruit, it did not prevent him from letting go. His arms pushed Poplar Fruit to the ground, and the sky and earth spun, and Poplar Fruit's head fell to the ground. This was one of the big black guy's 3 axes, to fall, and to fall upside down. This was almost a subconscious action, and Poplar Fruit was almost caught off guard, and his hands did not have time to support his head. Just as his head was about to make intimate contact with the floor, Poplar Fruit used his legs to wrap around the big black guy's neck in time. Poplar Fruit's legs were too flexible, and in an instant, They wrapped around the big black guy's neck like a hemp rope, and finally stopped his body in the air. Poplar Fruit did not wait for the big black guy to react, and stretched out his hands to support himself on the floor. His wrists exerted force, and his whole body was upside down in the air, and he spun 360 degrees in the air to put some distance between him and the big black guy. However, Poplar Fruit's counterattack was not over yet. Taking advantage of this position, he suddenly had an idea and took the initiative to attack. His legs were like a metronome as he continuously kicked out. He didn't look, but based on his instincts, he locked the target of his kicks on the big black guy's bald head. The big black guy had never seen anyone attack like this. He had just recovered from the ringing in his ears, and he hurriedly made a move. His hands were like palm leaf fans, and he wanted to stop Poplar Fruit's continuous kicks. It was a good idea, but Poplar Fruit's legs were too fast. Just as the big black guy's left hand was about to slap Poplar Fruit's right leg out, Poplar Fruit's left leg had already arrived. Before the big black guy could pull back his right hand to defend, his head was directly hit by Poplar Fruit's foot. Pa! A crisp sound rang out, and it was like swatting a mosquito. Poplar Fruit's foot landed on the big black guy's head. The big black guy staggered back 2 steps, and a red shoe imprint appeared on his smooth, shiny black bronze bald head. Poplar Fruit borrowed the force of the big black guy's slap, and his legs drew a beautiful arc in the air with one leg in front and one back. Then he firmly stepped on the ground and straightened his body. Turning back, Poplar Fruit glanced at the prisoners sitting on the bed, and found that they were all staring at him in disbelief. It was indeed unbelievable. This young man, who looked harmless when he first came in, was actually able to successfully escape from the bear hug of the infamous big black guy, Elder Song, and even had the strength to fight back. Looking at the red imprint on the big black guy's head, the funny scene did not make them laugh. On one hand, they were afraid that the big black guy would settle the score with them. On the other hand, they also felt that their understanding of the world had been overturned. What kind of miracle could this young man create? Chapter 367. Fifth update. After cleaning up the floor, Number 2 leader patted his chest and walked towards Poplar Fruit step by step with a ferocious smile on his face. He even laughed and said, "Little kid, you're still young but you've already learned bad things. Later when you get beaten up and cry, don't cry for your mother." Is there an end to this? Poplar Fruit felt a little annoyed. He had beaten up one person after another. Was he going to take turns and beat them up one by one? When was this going to end? "Wait, I'm not going to fight with you," Poplar Fruit shouted and suddenly looked up at the tall and strong black guy. His eyes were full of provocation. "I want to fight with you." "What?" Number 2 leader stopped as if he heard a joke. He laughed and said, "You want to challenge our boss? Save it." Number 2 leader suddenly shouted, "You want to fight with our boss? You're not qualified. Boss doesn't even need to do anything. I can beat you until you piss your pants." Poplar Fruit didn't pay attention to him. Instead, he continued to provocatively point at the black guy. He raised his head and said disdainfully, "What, you don't dare?" "Fuck." Feeling that he was ignored, Number 2 leader was very angry. He was ready to rush over and beat up Poplar Fruit. Suddenly, the expressionless big black guy's thighs shook, and he jumped down from the top bunk. His weight of at least 240 kilograms hit the ground. Yonghua felt as if there was an earthquake, and the floor shook. The black guy slowly straightened his back, stretched out his muscular arms, and blocked Number 2 leader's way. He said coldly, "He's mine." Number 2 leader was a little unwilling. He felt that he was considered weaker than Poplar Fruit by his boss. He hurriedly shouted, "Boss, I haven't fought with him yet." The black guy turned his head and stared at Number 2 leader with his bell-like eyes. He didn't need to say anything. That aggressive aura scared Number 2 leader so much that he quickly shrank back and didn't dare to raise any more questions. However, Number 2 and a few other people also looked at Poplar Fruit with some schadenfreude. The black guy and Poplar Fruit were not on the same level. In their minds, they had already imagined Poplar Fruit being beaten up until he couldn't take care of himself. This wasn't something that had never happened before. Big Black was a felon. He used to be a very powerful character in the army. After he retired from the army, he joined the underworld. There was once a gang fight where he single-handedly killed 10 people with a knife. 8 of them died on the spot. It was obvious how fierce Big Black was when he fought. Later, he hid for a few months, but was still caught by the police with a gun pointed at his head. Because he was involved in the gangsters, the black guy's sentence was still in the process of obtaining evidence and judicial procedures. He had been in this detention center for half a year, and had always been a well-deserved prison bully. Usually, when eating, everyone who saw the black guy would take a detour. They were afraid that if they offended him, they would be beaten to a pulp. Don't think that the black guy didn't dare to do it. He was already destined to be a person who couldn't escape the death penalty. Killing one more or one less was just a number to him. In the past, there was a ruthless person in the 8th prison who wanted to challenge the black guy's position. In the end, he was beaten to the ground and had a concussion. If the prison guard didn't come in time, it wasn't impossible that he would have been beaten to death. The black-haired man twisted his shoulders, and the bones in his body made popping sounds. He smashed his fists in front of his chest, making a dull sound. The black-haired man opened his big mouth and cruelly smiled. Then he said in a muffled voice, "I, Old Black Song, have killed more than 10 people, but I have never killed a nameless person. What is your name?" The black guy gave Poplar Fruit some pressure. This made Poplar Fruit a little dignified. He also circled left and right, seriously preparing. Hearing the black guy's question, Poplar Fruit didn't beat around the bush and directly answered, "Poplar Fruit. Your kung fu is not bad, but what a pity, hee." The black guy smiled sinisterly. His meaning was very clear. Poplar Fruit was destined to not be able to beat him. So what if his kung fu was good? In the end, it was still a dead end. The black guy didn't want to let go of anyone who provoked him. Isn't it too early to say this? Poplar Fruit raised his head and looked at him unconvinced. Ever since he started practicing Tai Chi, Poplar Fruit wasn't afraid of anyone. He hadn't lost to anyone. Moreover, with Xingyi Fist gradually reaching large success and other kung fu achievements, Poplar Fruit's confidence was rising steadily. Although the black guy's body gave him a lot of pressure, Poplar Fruit didn't think that he would lose. "No, it won't be long." The black guy laughed. He didn't want to waste time with Poplar Fruit. He roared excitedly and pounced on Poplar Fruit. When a person had a great physical advantage, he would prefer to use his physical advantage to defeat the enemy, instead of using guerrilla tactics to exhaust the enemy to death like Taizu. For the black guy, his most common methods were nothing more than bear hugs, straight punches, and wrestling. He didn't have any moves to speak of. It wasn't that he was lazy and didn't learn any moves. With his body, he could just use his thigh-thick arms to wrap around the opponent like a python. No one could stand it. Needless to say, a heavy punch to the head would result in a concussion if it was light, and death if it was heavy. His strength was so great that if he lifted someone up and threw them to the ground in a wrestling position, Bruce Lee would probably be out of breath. Poplar Fruit habitually moved aside. However, he didn't consider that the black guy was tall and had long arms. Poplar Fruit didn't dodge. He was caught by the black guy, and then his whole body was in a bear hug. Being hugged by the black guy, Poplar Fruit's first feeling wasn't tightness, but smelly. It was too smelly. This big black man with a black chest exuded a stench from head to toe as if he had not bathed for several months. Especially under his armpits, Yanghua almost fainted from the stench. The big black guy was like an eagle catching a chick. He was very pleased with himself. He started to contract the muscles in his arms. He wanted to squeeze Yanghua to death, and then beat him up. Although the smell was very disgusting, Poplar Fruit was still awakened by the black guy's rapidly contracting muscles. He opened his eyes and regained his clarity. However, everything just happened too quickly. When Poplar Fruit was hugged by the black guy, he didn't have the best posture to protect himself. His right hand was now in front of his chest, stuck by the black guy, and his left hand was hanging empty under his body. Poplar Fruit's strength was indeed great, but in this posture he couldn't use any strength at all. Poplar Fruit tried to use the strength of his right hand to push the black guy's arm away. However, his right hand could only use 40% of its strength. It could only slow down the black guy's contraction speed. Huff huff. Poplar Fruit was breathing rapidly. The situation was very critical. Chapter 368. The big black guy was pushed back by poplar fruit. He stood firm and touched the part of his head that was hit by poplar fruit. He didn't become angry because of this. Instead, his dark face reflected an excited expression. The big black guy opened his mouth, revealing his black and yellow teeth. He smiled, and his eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. The big black guy smashed his fists together in front of him. With a howl, he strode toward poplar fruit. His body was too big and heavy. When he stepped on the concrete floor, the ground shook. The prisoners on the bed shrank their heads in fear, afraid that they would be affected. The big black guy's boxing skills were better than moves. However, he didn't punch randomly. He clenched his fists at the two ends of his chin. Every time he punched, he would punch with one hand and block with the other. It was very similar to the standard boxing moves of a boxer on the boxing stage. However, his fists were more fierce and heavier. Poplar fruit didn't want to take it head-on. He relied on his flexible body movements to dodge. However, the space in the prison was very small. Poplar fruit took 2 steps back and was about to lean against the iron door behind him. Poplar fruit had no choice but to use Tai Chi's pushing hands and Shang Yiquan's blocking moves to fight with the big black guy. After 2 moves, poplar fruit was enraged by the big black guy. He was too fierce. Poplar fruit glared at the big black guy with angry eyes. The guy in front of him was like a weapon trained by the dark sect to kill people. Every punch was fatal. If it wasn't the eye socket, it was the sun fist on both sides. Although the big black guy was big and liked to trample on his opponent, he was also very sinister. Sometimes, when poplar fruit blocked his hands, the big black guy would fly up and hit poplar fruit's lower body with his knee. If it wasn't for poplar fruit's quick reaction and dodging, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Unscrupulous means didn't seem like the style of a martial artist. Poplar fruit thought bitterly. However, he also understood that the big black guy wasn't a martial artist. At most, he was a scum of society who relied on his body and blood to abuse his power. The big black guy angered poplar fruit, and the consequences were very serious. Poplar fruit panted slightly. His eyes narrowed into slits. He didn't want to be entangled with the big black guy anymore. He shouted in his heart, "Let's end this." Poplar fruit suddenly stopped fighting like a loach. Instead, he showed an attitude of duty-bound to meet the big black guy head-on. The dark-skinned man roared and punched out with his right fist, bringing with it a frightening aura. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been scared witless before the fist even reached them. However, he was facing poplar fruit. Poplar fruit's left hand shot out like lightning. In an instant, he caught the big black guy's right wrist. With a twist, he removed the strength of the big black guy's heavy fist. Then, poplar fruit's left hand gently twisted the big black guy's right hand into a strange position that made him uncomfortable and unable to use force. It wasn't over yet. Poplar fruit gently tilted his head and avoided the big black guy's left fist. Then he attacked. Before the big black guy could react, poplar fruit's right hand had already locked onto his throat. A trace of surprise flashed in the big black guy's eyes. However, before he could make his next move, poplar fruit shouted loudly. His whole body burst forth with great strength. He locked onto the big black guy's throat and pushed him back. From the perspective of others, with poplar fruit's thin and weak body, it was no different from an ant trying to shake a tree. However, hadn't poplar fruit surprised them enough today? Not only did poplar fruit shake the big black guy like a mountain, but he also pushed him back very quickly. The fight between the two could be said to have started from the door to the house, and then from the house back to near the door. Now, under the push of poplar fruit, the big black guy couldn't stop moving back until he hit the wall closest to the toilet. It wasn't that the big black guy didn't struggle, but the speed was too fast. The big black guy lost his center of gravity and could only wave his left arm in the air to try to balance his body. He hit the wall with a bang, and some dust fell from the eaves. The big black guy finally got a chance to breathe. His right hand was firmly held by poplar fruit's left hand, and he couldn't break free. He could only use his left hand to break away from poplar fruit's right hand that was locking onto his throat. Ugh ugh. The big black guy used all his strength to break away from poplar fruit's wrist, but in the end, it was as if he was grabbing onto an iron arm made of reinforced concrete. No matter how he grabbed and pinched, it didn't move at all. Poplar Fruit roared again and used all his strength with his right hand. The big black guy who weighed a few hundred pounds was pressed against the wall by Poplar Fruit, and he slowly raised one of his hands. The surrounding prisoners' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This was especially true for leader number 2, who had just wanted to clamor. "If you want to challenge, boss, you'll have to step over my dead body." He sucked in a breath of cold air, and felt a little lucky that leader number 2 had taken action for him. Otherwise, he would definitely have died a horrible death. When the big black guy was raised, he saw a violent killing intent in Poplar Fruit's eyes. The big black guy was no stranger to this, because when he was in a killing frenzy, he would also have this kind of bloodthirsty ruthlessness. What the big black guy knew even more clearly was that Poplar Fruit had the urge to kill him. This young man wasn't a weakling who could be bullied by others, but a tiger who had killed people before and wasn't afraid of killing people. The big black guy began to struggle with all his might. If this continued, he would really be killed by Poplar Fruit. He tried to break away from Poplar Fruit's hand, while learning from Poplar Fruit to use his legs to wrap around Poplar Fruit's waist in order to buy some time to breathe. However, Poplar Fruit didn't let him have his way. Poplar Fruit only raised his left knee and blocked the big black guy's legs. The big black guy was wrong. Poplar Fruit wasn't a bloodthirsty person, and he was a little disgusted by killing people. However, he was really blinded by anger now. Now in Poplar Fruit's mind, there was only the thought of completely defeating this strong man who was a fatal threat to him. Poplar Fruit raised his hand. The big black guy's feet were dozens of centimeters off the ground, and his throat was stuck. Gradually, the big black guy's eyes rolled back, and his legs twitched weakly in the air. The big black guy's vision was already distorted and blurred, and his consciousness was gradually becoming a blank. His last thought was a sad sigh. "I old black song. I'm not being ruled by the people, but am I going to die here in the end?" Everyone in the prison saw that something was wrong, and they all kept quiet out of fear, not daring to make a sound. Only Chong X, who was as timid as a mouse, knew what was going on. He leaned against the big iron gate, and when he saw what was going on, he banged on the big iron gate with all his might. He screamed at the top of the observation window, "Murder!" Chapter 369. First update. Chong X's miserable scream instantly made Poplar Fruit's eyes regain their clarity. He calmed himself down and looked at the big black guy who had white foam in his mouth. He quickly let go of his hand and let him slide to the ground. Poplar Fruit didn't think much at that moment. It wasn't that he thought of something. He just subconsciously let go of the big black guy. He didn't want to kill anyone. However, looking at the big black guy who gradually recovered his breath and began to cough violently, Poplar Fruit began to have some lingering fear in his heart. Fighting in this place was very common. However, if someone killed someone, no one could escape the punishment of the law. Poplar Fruit was wrongly accused. However, if he strangled the big black guy to death, Poplar Fruit would really commit a big crime. Perhaps even if Big Brother he came, he might not be able to save Poplar Fruit. How could I be so muddle-headed? Poplar Fruit blamed himself in his heart. He also thought of this layer. If I really have to be responsible for my impulsiveness in prison, then what about Kiki? Wouldn't he never be able to see his daughter again? Or even if I see her, I will miss the most adorable childhood of her. And what about Fong Beibei? I haven't confessed to her yet. Would she wait for me for so many years? Not to mention whether she would wait or not. I don't have the face to beg for the love of this kind and pure girl. In just a moment, thousands of thoughts flashed through Poplar Fruit's mind. Fortunately, it hasn't caused a big mistake yet. I have to be careful in the future. Poplar Fruit sighed slightly in his heart. What are you doing? What are you doing? Chong Liang's screams attracted the attention of the prison guards because the 8th prison was a place that was prone to trouble. Moreover, a newcomer had just arrived. Although they were instructed to turn a blind eye, they did not go far. When they heard the screams, they took out their stun batons and ran over. One of the prison guards took out his key to open the door. Another prison guard used an electric baton to knock on the observation fence of the iron gate and scolded angrily, "Old Black Song, don't kill him." He thought that the newcomer was being abused. It was normal to be injured and crippled, which was exactly what Makai was looking forward to. However, if someone died, the prison guards would not have an easy time either. After opening the iron door, the door was kicked open impatiently. 2 prison guards rushed in, but the scene in front of them made them stare blankly at the spot. What's going on? The 2 prison guards looked at each other. They read the same question in each other's eyes. Yeah, what's going on? Why was it different from what he had imagined? The one lying on the ground coughing miserably was Big Black, and the one standing on the ground unscathed was actually the new prisoner. Wasn't the order reversed? The 2 prison guards could not believe their eyes. What's going on? The prison guard captain on duty stood at the door with one hand on the holster at his waist and asked loudly. They did not know what words to use to describe the situation. The 2 prison guards sensibly stepped aside to make way for the captain to see what was going on inside. Poplar Fruit stood still vigilantly, but his muscles were tense. The prison guard captain had a gun in his hand. He did not want to be misunderstood and then be shot unjustly. At this time, Big Black finally recovered and slowly got up from the ground. Old Black Song. The prison guard captain saw that it was Big Black who was lying on the ground and shouted in surprise. Hee hee cough cough. Big Black laughed dryly, but it affected his throat and caused him to cough violently. Poplar Fruit felt helpless. He felt that Big Black was definitely going to complain about him. He was almost strangled to death by him, so it would be strange if he would let him have a good time. If he complained, Poplar Fruit could only accept it. However, things were so strange. After coughing a few times, Big Black said unexpectedly to Poplar Fruit, "Hee hee, just kidding, nothing." His voice was very hoarse. It seemed that Poplar Fruit's attack just now really hurt him. Poplar Fruit's eyes were wide open. He looked at Big Black in disbelief. He did not take the opportunity to retaliate. Is it really okay? The prison guard captain looked at Poplar Fruit suspiciously, and then looked at Big Black. It's really okay. Big Black's dark face squeezed out an ugly smile. It was not that he did not want to smile, but every time he wanted to show a flattering smile, it would become so ugly. Okay, if you say it's okay, then it's okay. Let's go. The prison guard captain was too lazy to care about the small friction between the prisoners. He waved his hand and turned to leave. The remaining 2 prison guards hesitated. One of them pointed at Poplar Fruit with a stun baton and threatened, "Be careful." However, they did not dare to stay any longer. Poplar Fruit was able to beat up Big Black. Even if they had stun batons in their hands, they still looked at Poplar Fruit with fear in their eyes. When they went out, they unwillingly kicked the door that called them over. However, Chong X, who was all bark and no bite, slammed the door shut. After the prison guard left, Poplar Fruit turned to look at Big Black and asked in a deep voice, "Why?" The dark-skinned man rubbed his sore throat and replied in a low, muffled voice, "Things in the cell will be settled in the cell." After he finished speaking, he glared fiercely at Chong X. The ferocity in his eyes showed that he did not treat Chong X as his savior at all. Chong X pulled a long face and shrunk his head. He lay on the ground and did not dare to make a sound. "Then, do you still want to fight?" Poplar Fruit was still a little vigilant. Although his hands were hanging down, his fists were still clenched and ready to move at any time. "No." Big Black laughed self-deprecatingly. "You're strong. I can't beat you. This number is yours." Although he was somewhat unwilling, Big Black was still willing to admit defeat and readily agreed. "I'm not interested in the cell. It's still yours." Poplar Fruit said indifferently, "I already said that I didn't do anything and I'm not a prisoner." Poplar Fruit did not want to say anything else. Big Black was stunned for a moment. He did not expect that after fighting for so long, he would find out that the other party was not interested in what they were staring at. "Then you'll sleep on my bed?" Big Black asked. Although Poplar Fruit did not fight for power, he could not just order Poplar Fruit around. In front of the strong, he had to have a crawling posture. Poplar Fruit looked at Big Black's bed and thought of the stench on his body. He shook his head and turned to look at number 2, who was sitting on the second best bed. Number 2 was the first to react. He quickly jumped off the bed and stood to the side with his head lowered. Poplar Fruit turned to Big Black and said, "I'll sit here." After he said that, he gently jumped and his right foot tapped on the iron ladder. He turned around and sat on number 2's bed. Then he closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. Chapter 370. Second update. Aside from Big Black, who was sleeping soundly on the bed, the other 5 prisoners were all secretly sizing up poplar fruit. They didn't dare whisper in private, but from the looks they occasionally exchanged, it was clear that they were still confused. After all, poplar fruit's performance really overturned their understanding. How could a guy with off-the-charts fight hide under such a frail body? Poplar fruit didn't care about their spying. He sat upright on the bed of number 2, and gently breathed in an attempt to calm his agitated mood. It had already been 2 to 3 hours since he was locked up, but poplar fruit didn't see a trace of hope of escaping. What were Song Jiwen and the others doing? At that moment, there was a loud screech of brakes at the main entrance of the police station where poplar fruit was previously locked up. A domineering Land Rover stopped in front of the main entrance, completely blocking the main entrance of the police station. The person in the driver's seat clearly wasn't in a good mood. He pushed open the door, jumped out, and slammed the door shut with a bang. Seeing him in his military uniform and fuming with anger, the guard who was about to yell at him shrunk his head back dejectedly. That's right, He Wenjue had arrived. He wasn't alone. 2 people got out of the back of the Land Rover with anxious expressions on their faces. They were Song Jiwen and Duan Xueqing, who were being nagged by poplar fruit. Not only that, but a slightly fat man also got out of the front passenger seat. Although he didn't have the energy of He Wenjue, he had an awe-inspiring and inviolable temperament as he stood at the entrance of the police station. Young Master He, it should be here. The man pointed at the police station as he spoke to He Wenjue. His tone didn't have much flattery, but he still didn't dare neglect He Wenjue. Although He Wenjue's chest was burning with rage, he was still a lot more amiable with the man. Old Liu, this matter shouldn't be delayed. Let's move quickly. Old Liu, full name Liu Keshou, had an extraordinary status. He was the deputy director of the Yangqing Municipal Bureau, and was in charge of criminal investigation. He could be considered a very powerful person. Before he changed careers, he met He Wenjue once, and could be considered comrades in arms. In addition to He Wenjue's terrifying background, when He Wenjue found him, Liu Keshou didn't dare put on any airs. He immediately found someone to find the police station on this street based on the police car license plate number provided by Duan Xueqing, and personally brought He Wenjue. Seeing Liu Ku, the old man was dumbfounded. He knew this big shot. In the past, when he came to guide the work, all the leaders in the branch would come to the door to greet him. He quickly opened the door, and didn't even dare to breathe loudly. After seeing them go in, he slipped back to his small pavilion and called his leader. The branch director who received the news happened to be in the station. He dropped the phone and knocked over a chair in a hurry. He didn't dare to cry out in pain and ran down on tiptoe to greet them. "Zhou Lubo, how dare you?" Seeing the bureau chief coming down, Liu Keshou shouted loudly. His loud and clear voice rumbled throughout the hall. Director Liu, don't be angry." Zhou Lubo's face was bitter. He ran to He Wenjue and the others and asked, "Tell me first, what did we do wrong? Change it right away, change it right away." Liu Keshou said seriously, "Are the police under your command the people's police or the police of that person called Gu Shida? You brought people directly to the station without distinguishing between right and wrong?" Zhou Lubo was stunned for a moment and asked, "Gu Shida? Are you talking about the nephew of Deputy Mayor Gu?" "I don't care if he is the nephew of the deputy mayor or not." Liu Keshou glared and scolded. "Can the deputy mayor arrest people without any evidence?" Zhou Lubo realized that he had said something wrong. He said with a sad face, "Director Liu, I really don't know about this. I don't know if the people below did something stupid. Please wait a moment, I'll ask right away." "Ask here." He Wenjue interjected coldly. Zhou Lubo couldn't help but look at Liu Keshou. Liu Keshou glared at him and scolded, "Hurry up and ask." Zhou Lubo casually found a policeman on duty and asked about the situation today. At that time, Hu Chuanqiang and the others were in a mess. Everyone in the police station knew about it, so Zhou Lubo knew about it when he asked. As soon as Zhou Lubo heard that they were taken into the small dark room, he knew what was going on. Zhou Lubo's face darkened. and he quickly took He Wenjue and the others to the interrogation room. There was no one in the interrogation room, but there was a pool of blood on the floor. The chair had been overturned, so it could be seen that something terrible had happened there. When Duan Xueqing saw the blood, her eyes suddenly turned red. He Wenjue picked up the interrogation record that hadn't been put on the table. He was angry, so he grabbed Zhou Lubo's collar and asked angrily, "Where is my brother? Where is Poplar Fruit? How is he?" Lu Keshou saw that the situation was not right, so he quickly came over to hold He Wenjue's hand and advised, "Wenjue, calm down first." After he came in, he couldn't call He Wenjue young master he anymore. "Director Zhou, this police officer." At this time, a young policeman came in and said hesitantly, "I know where Mr. Poplar Fruit went." "Where did he go?" He Wenjue, Zhou Lubo, and Lu Keshou asked at the same time. The young policeman was so nervous that he stuttered. "Ma Kai asked me to send him to the detention center at the back." Then he paused for a moment before adding, "Cell number 8. "What? Prison number 8? Zhou Lubo cried out. Lu Keshou and He Wenjue didn't know what prison number 8 represented, but Zhou Lubo knew. "What is the situation?" He Wenjue frowned and asked, "Speak clearly." The young policeman quickly explained what had happened. He wasn't clear about what had happened in the interrogation room, so he could only explain what he had seen. Hu Chuanxiang had an accident, his mouth was full of blood, and Poplar Fruit was electrocuted and unconscious on the ground. Hearing the young policeman say this, Song Jiwen's eyes turned red, and Duan Xueqing couldn't suppress her emotions and started crying. But He Wenjue's eyes flashed with a trace of light. He knew that his little brother was definitely not someone easy to deal with. Would he have suffered a big loss? Probably not. Instead, Hu Chuanxiang, whose mouth was full of blood, was very likely to have been tricked by Poplar Fruit. These two policemen in your bureau, not only did they arrest people indiscriminately, they even tortured them to extort a confession. Lu Keshou looked at Zhou Lubo meaningfully, as if to say, "As a leader, how do you educate your subordinates? Is it because they are not qualified for this position? I will find someone to educate them for you." Zhou Lubo quivered and quickly responded, "Director Lu, I will immediately suspend them for investigation." He Wenjue patted the table in the middle of the interrogation room and said seriously, "First, let my brother out." Chapter 371. Third update. On the way to the detention center in the mountain behind the police station, Song Jiwen couldn't help but ask, "Director Zhou, what exactly is the 8th prison?" Zhou Lubo turned his head and looked at the two young people behind He Wenjue. Duan Xueqing was still okay, but Song Jiwen, who had been in the officialdom for 2 years, had a strong official aura. Zhou Lubo could clearly feel it. Because He Wenjue's identity was not ordinary. Zhou Lubo bluntly explained to Song Jiwen the significance of the 8th prison. With every sentence he said, Song Jiwen's face became more and more ashen, while Duan Xueqing's face became paler. Her worry for Poplar Fruit was difficult to suppress. "Director?" The young police officer weakly interrupted and asked, "Should we inform the people inside first? Mr. Yang is so young, I'm afraid." "Yes. Those are all serious criminals. Director Zhou, quickly let the police officers in the detention center bring Poplar Fruit out first. I'm afraid something will happen." "Aya, why didn't you say so earlier?" Zhou Lubo patted his head. He was really scared and didn't think of this point. He quickly took out his phone and prepared to make a call. He Wenjue glanced at the gate of the detention center and smiled as he pressed down on Zhou Lubo's phone. Among the group of people, He Wenjue was the calmest. He shook his head. "No need. We're almost at the gate. Just pick him up and that'll be enough." "Big brother he." Song Jiwen shouted anxiously. "Haha." He Wenjue looked back at Song Jiwen and laughed. "You probably don't know what kind of person your brother is, right?" Song Jiwen looked at He Wenjue in confusion. He Wenjue calmly said, "Don't worry, few people in Sheep City can beat him barehanded. You'll know when we get there." After entering the detention center, He Wenjue asked Song Jiwen, Duan Xueqing, and Lu Ke to wait in the office outside. He Zhou Lubo and the young policemen were led in by the prison guard captain on duty. "Captain Wu, is everything okay?" The young police officer could not help but ask the prison guard who led the way in a soft voice. Because he often escorted prisoners down here, he often interacted with the prison guards here. He was quite familiar with the one in front of him. Captain Wu turned his head and looked at Zhou Lubo and the others. He hesitated for a moment and shook his head. Although he didn't know any of them except for Zhou Lubo, he could feel that they were all important figures. He still concealed the details of the previous storm. Anyway, the result was that nothing happened. Poplar Fruit heard a flurry of footsteps outside, and gently opened his eyes. The others did not have as good hearing as Poplar Fruit. They only sat up when they heard the sound of the door opening. The prison guard captain walked in, and saw the new arrangement of beds in Section 8. His eyes flashed with a trace of shock. However, he did not show it. He only looked at the name on the record book in his hand and shouted, "Poplar Fruit, you can come out now." Poplar Fruit directly jumped down from the top bunk and landed silently. Big Black also jumped down with a bang, causing the floor to shake. The prison guard captain was still afraid of Big Black. When he saw Big Black jump down, he immediately put his right hand into the holster on his waist and shouted, "Old Black Song, what are you doing?" When he shouted, Zhou Lubo, who was worried that something might happen, also squeezed in. The young policeman looked at He Wenjua, who was standing outside without moving. He felt strange. He tiptoed and looked in over Zhou Lubo's shoulder. The big black guy grinned and said, "Don't be nervous, I just want to say goodbye." Poplar Fruit looked at him quietly. The big black guy took a deep look at Yang Gua and said, "You are the strongest person I have ever seen. I, Old Black Song, have never met a worthy opponent since I left the army, until I met you here." Poplar Fruit smiled gently and said, "You are also very strong. I beat you by luck. You are indeed stronger than me." Big Black sighed with emotion. He lowered his head and said, "I really want to fight with you a few more times. Unfortunately, my crime is too serious. The next time we meet, we can only wait for the next life." Poplar Fruit did not know what to say. He was silent for a moment and said softly, "Take care." "Okay." Big Black Song saluted Poplar Fruit and did not say anything else. He quietly climbed back to his upper bunk and lay down. Under the surprised eyes of the prison guard captain and Zhou Lubo, Poplar Fruit walked past them with his head held high. He walked out of the 8th prison where he had only stayed for less than half a day. Including the young policeman, they all remembered He Wenjua's calm smile and his meaningful words. "Big brother." After walking out, Poplar Fruit saw He Wenjua looking at him with a faint smile and shouted with gratitude, "Let's go. We will talk when we get back." He Wenjua put his hand on Poplar Fruit's shoulder. "Big brother, my clothes are a bit smelly." "Smelly my ass?" He Wenjua laughed heartily. "When I was on a mission, what dirty and smelly place have I not squatted in?" The two of them put some distance between them and the 3 people behind them. He Wenjua began to whisper, "Poplar Fruit, you are good. You still haven't gotten rid of the Zheng family's daughter, and there is another beauty outside crying for you." Poplar Fruit looked at him and did not know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Don't talk nonsense, those 2 are just my friends." He Wenjua curled his lips and said in disbelief, "If they are just friends, why would you fight for her? Why would you be locked up in prison?" Poplar Fruit said speechlessly, "Even if you see injustice on the road, you will still help, let alone friends? Big brother, your mind is too dirty." At the door, He Wenjua did not continue to entangle with Poplar Fruit on this issue. He did not have much interest in the love between men and women. Old Gua. Song Jiwen saw Poplar Fruit from afar and hurriedly rushed over. Duan Xueqing also had tears in her eyes when she saw Poplar Fruit with disheveled hair walk out of the iron gate. "You didn't lose any parts, right?" Song Jiwen nervously touched Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled and slapped his hand away. "It's fine, didn't I come out in one piece?" He was indeed fine, except that his abdomen was a little black from the electric shock. However, Poplar Fruit did not plan to say it out loud, afraid that they would be worried. "I'm sorry." Duan Xueqing slowly walked over. Her icy cold Lu Yume had now softened, and because of the tears in her eyes, she looked even more beautiful. Poplar Fruit laughed and comforted her, saying, "What are you talking about? You didn't do anything wrong. Why are you apologizing? Walking out of the gloomy detention center, although it was only half a day, Poplar Fruit looked at the sun and green plants outside, and felt a little emotional. It felt good to see the light of day again. Chapter 372. Fourth update. Wuxia told Poplar Fruit not to worry about what happened after that. He left Poplar Fruit's recording, as well as Hu Chuanxiang's confession, to Wuxia. Wuxia would investigate this matter thoroughly. Poplar Fruit jumped into his car. Song Jiwen suggested that after Poplar Fruit was released from prison, he had to eat a meal to get over his shock. Big brother, he agreed, so Poplar Fruit had to agree. But before that, Poplar Fruit had to go back to school. He was very anxious. He had left early in the morning, and it was already sunset. Poplar Fruit hadn't seen his daughter for a whole day, so he was very worried. Plus, he had lied to Fong Beibei, saying that he was only going to see the tutor, but he had been gone for so long. He was very anxious. His phone had run out of battery, and there was no charger in the car. He could only suppress his uneasiness and drive quickly. Oh yeah, why did you guys arrive so late? Poplar Fruit was waiting for a traffic light when he thought of this question. He turned his head and asked Song Jiwen, who was in the passenger's seat. You're still asking? Song Jiwen was speechless. You couldn't get through to Brother Song's phone. We called him the whole morning, but no one picked up. Then how did you find him? Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. Luckily, we found out that there was still Mrs. He's number in the phone when there was still a little bit of battery left. Through her we found Big Brother He. Song Jiwen laughed. So Big Brother He is from the army. Poplar Fruit roughly understood what had happened. Big Brother He must have been training in the army that day, so his phone was turned off. Then, when Ji Xiaoyan found out that something had happened to her, she ran directly to the army to call Wuxia out. No matter what, they had rescued Poplar Fruit in the end. Poplar Fruit wouldn't have to stay in the detention center for the night. Poplar Fruit was a little depressed. Song Jiwen and Duan Xueqing's phones were both Android phones. The charging cable for the phones was different from the one for Poplar Fruit's iPhone, so Poplar Fruit couldn't charge his phone at the moment. Luckily, in less than 20 minutes, Poplar Fruit drove to the teacher's dormitory. Because Big Brother He and the others were with him this time, Poplar Fruit didn't park his car at the school anymore. Wait a minute, I'll go up to pick up Kiki and change my clothes. Poplar Fruit said to them with a smile, then quickly ran upstairs. Poplar Fruit opened the door with the key, and found that the two little ones were already standing there to welcome him. It must have been Gold who found him first. Poplar Fruit saw his daughter standing next to Gold with a smile. She raised her head, stretched out her hand, and called happily, Papa. The incandescent light in the living room wasn't turned on, but a small yellow light was turned on. Poplar Fruit could see that the beautiful girl was standing under the light, biting her lower lip and looking at him. Beibei. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei apologetically, and a wave of guilt surged in his heart. Papa. Kiki found that her father didn't pay attention to her. She was a little dissatisfied and called out again. Kiki wants a hug. Poplar Fruit rubbed his daughter's hair, walked in and said, Not now, Dad stinks. Hearing this, Kiki sniffed hard, fanned her little hand in front of her nose, pouted her little mouth and said, Smelly, smelly Papa, smelly Papa. Fong Beibei saw that Poplar Fruit's clothes were a little messy and his hair was a little messy. Her heart softened and she asked softly, Where did you go today? How did you become like this? Nothing, I just went to do something. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Poplar Fruit didn't intend to tell her. First, he was afraid that Fong Beibei would be worried. Second, because of today's matter and the existence of Duan Xueqing, Poplar Fruit wouldn't be stupid enough to speak without thinking. Wait a minute, I'm going to take a shower first. Poplar Fruit had long been tired of the stench of the detention center, so he quickly took a set of clothes and went into the bathroom. After taking off his clothes, Poplar Fruit looked in the mirror at the scorched part of his abdomen that was poked by the electric baton. He touched it and found that it didn't hurt anymore, but the black color seemed to be the color of the epidermal cells that were burned by the electric baton. It couldn't be washed off and could only be removed slowly by metabolism. After a quick shower, Poplar Fruit changed into a set of clean clothes and quickly walked out of the bathroom. You're back. I'm going back to the dormitory. Fong Beibei had already packed her bag and was sitting there. When she saw Poplar Fruit come out, she stood up and said, Beibei, wait a minute. Poplar Fruit picked up Kiki, who rushed over, and quickly blocked in front of Fong Beibei. After the shower, Poplar Fruit's body had a strong soap fragrance. Fong Beibei, who was close to him, blushed a little. However, under the soft yellow light, it didn't look so obvious. Poplar Fruit looked at the seemingly weak and beautiful girl and said very apologetically, Beibei, today, I'm really sorry. I didn't come back at noon as I said. It's okay. Fong Beibei shook her head. I have a few friends waiting for me downstairs. They're going to eat. Do you want to come? Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei with some hope. Poplar Fruit has already met Fong Beibei's friends and roommates. Not to mention anything else, he has already invited them to eat several times. However, Fong Beibei has no intention of getting involved in Poplar Fruit's circle of friends. Until now, Poplar Fruit hasn't introduced his friends to her. Fong Beibei didn't want to meet Poplar Fruit's eyes. She hesitated, shook her head and said, No, I already ate today. Poplar Fruit didn't force her. He took a charging cable, carried his daughter and took gold. He followed Fong Beibei downstairs. Opening the door downstairs, Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit walked out. She saw Poplar Fruit's car at a glance. I'll send you back? Poplar Fruit said softly. Fong Beibei didn't answer. She stood there and stared at Poplar Fruit's car for 2 seconds. Song Jiwen and the others waited for 10 minutes. They were a little bored. Song Jiwen heard a bang. He looked up and saw Poplar Fruit. He couldn't help but shout, They're coming down. However, just as the words left his mouth, Song Jiwen regretted it. He saw the girl next to Poplar Fruit. Duan Xueqing also saw her. She was sitting in the back seat. In order to enjoy the cool summer night, the window just happened to be open. Just like that, she heard the sound and turned her head. She just happened to meet Fong Beibei's eyes for a moment. Duan Xueqing couldn't see Fong Beibei's face from afar. However, from the outline and blurry appearance, she must be a very beautiful girl. She could see Poplar Fruit's movements and sighed slightly in her heart. Whether it was Song Jiwen or Duan Xueqing, from Poplar Fruit's every move, they could see that Poplar Fruit cared about that girl. Fong Beibei saw Duan Xueqing in Poplar Fruit's car. She was stunned for 2 seconds. However, she recovered very quickly. Her expression was as if nothing had happened. She shook her head at Poplar Fruit and said with a smile, No need. I used to walk back. I'll walk back. Okay. Poplar Fruit hugged his daughter and watched Fong Beibei walk down the quiet path. Her back gradually disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 373. Fifth update. He Wenjue made his move, and things progressed surprisingly quickly. First of all, Hu Chuanqiang and Ma Kai were removed from their posts and investigated. The two of them had done a lot of dirty things behind their backs, and it was only a matter of time before they ended up in jail. Gu Shida couldn't escape either. He had done a lot of similar things before, and at that time, he had relied on his connections to suppress them. This time Lu Keshou directly exposed him. According to the recording provided by Poplar Fruit, he reopened Gu Shida's previous record. Lu Keshou was indeed a criminal investigator. He had people arrest Wang Changyuan directly. Wang Changyuan, who couldn't be a tough nut to crack, suddenly became the breakthrough in Gu Shida's case. In less than 2 days, all the dirty things Gu Shida had done in the past were revealed. His uncle, Gu Ziwei, wanted to protect his nephew, but in the end he was also involved. It was not hard to imagine that Gu Shida could be so arrogant because Gu Ziwei was backing him up. Gu Shida's background was not clean, but how could Gu Ziwei be clean? In just a few days, Poplar Fruit saw the news in the newspaper brought back by Song Jiwen that Gu Ziwei had been investigated for serious violations of discipline. You brought this upon yourself. Song Jiwen said triumphantly. This is a lesson for you, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Learn from your mistakes. Nonsense. Song Jiwen pushed Yanggua's hand and scolded with a smile. You are the one who should learn from your mistakes. I am an upright and clean official, okay? I mean the relationship between men and women. Poplar Fruit smiled strangely. I am quite worried about the girls in your unit. Well, I have no desires now. You should worry about me. Song Ji-won shook his head. Now I am only interested in food. By the way, what delicious food are you making today? Hearing the key words in Song Ji-won's words, Kiki ran over and looked hopefully at Poplar Fruit. Fish head tofu soup. Poplar Fruit picked up his daughter and smiled. Kiki's favorite. Yeah. Kiki happily raised her little hand and kissed her father on the cheek, leaving a lot of saliva. Poplar Fruit had only recently discovered that among all the ingredients that Kiki had, fish was her favorite. No matter if it was saltwater fish or freshwater fish, steamed fish or pan-fried fish. As long as it was made by her father, Kiki could eat it all. As for cooking fish soup, it was second only to steaming and could preserve the freshness of the fish to the greatest extent. It was one of Chi-Chi's favorite ways to eat it. Why is it tofu again? Song Ji-won said dejectedly. There's still sweet and sour pork ribs. Poplar Fruit smiled. Of course he wouldn't just make fish soup. Other than sweet and sour pork ribs, he also wanted to make vegetables. Really? Song Ji-won's eyes lit up. Actually, Kiki quite liked the taste of sweet and sour pork ribs, but because she couldn't chew on the pork ribs, she could only look at the pork ribs and drool. Hence, Poplar Fruit planned to feed Kiki with rice before serving the pork ribs. Poplar Fruit was busy in the kitchen, chopping the fish head noisily. Song Ji-won leaned against the kitchen door and asked, "Where's Xueqing? Why didn't you call her over when you made a big meal today?" Poplar Fruit raised his head and smiled at Song Ji-won. He said, "She went home to relax." This was what Duan Xueqing had told Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit didn't think too much about it. After a thrilling day, Duan Xueqing didn't go to work again. She later resigned as she had said in the restaurant. Civil servant was the most popular profession in China. Every year, millions of people tried their best to get in. Duan Xueqing was admitted. After working for less than a year, she resigned without any attachment. Song Ji-won tried to persuade her, but Poplar Fruit didn't. He felt that Duan Xueqing's resignation was right. With Duan Xueqing's personality, she wasn't suitable for such a job. Although Gu Shida had been arrested, in a place like that, who knew if another Wu Shida or Zhang Shida would come tomorrow? Poplar Fruit didn't object. Instead, he encouraged her. He smiled and said to Duan Xueqing, "It's okay. You can go back and be a translator. You'll definitely make more money." Duan Xueqing didn't smile at that time. It wasn't because she rarely had emotional fluctuations. It was because there was an idea in Duan Xueqing's heart that was swaying left and right. She thought about it for a long time. The girl she saw downstairs of the teacher's apartment that day had shaken her expectations for Poplar Fruit. She could see that Poplar Fruit cared a lot about that girl. He didn't even care about Lu Yunran that much. Duan Xueqing was still thinking about whether her love for Poplar Fruit was real love. Poplar Fruit was just as he said. He showed her the care and concern of a friend. Furthermore, it was just the care and concern of a brother and sister. It had nothing to do with love. As for Duan Xueqing herself, she seemed to be confused by this relationship. She was very attached to Yanghua. She was attached to him because he protected her with all his might and took care of her gently. Maybe there was a little love, but Duan Xueqing wasn't very sure. The more she thought about it, the more confused she became. Duan Xueqing didn't go to work for a few days. She stayed at home and stared blankly out the window, thinking about something. Poplar Fruit didn't know that Duan Xueqing's mother had come to visit, and Duan Xueqing didn't tell her either. Although Mrs. Duan later confirmed that her daughter was fine over the phone, she was still worried and came over. Mrs. Duan didn't care about work at all. The Duan family had a big business. Even if Duan Xueqing, the only daughter of the Duan family, didn't work, she could live a carefree life. She was more concerned about Duan Xueqing's love life. Duan Xueqing wanted to hide it at first, but Duan Xueqing's mother, who had been there before, saw through her at a glance. After she pressed her, Duan Xueqing finally told her everything. Silly girl. Mrs. Duan hugged her daughter and sat on the sofa in the living room. She gently stroked her daughter's hair and sighed. There are so many good men in the world. You don't have to break your heart for one man. Go home with me and have some time alone. Mrs. Duan whispered into her daughter's ear. You won't have to see him every day. You'll be able to let go slowly. Duan Xueqing's heart was complicated. On one hand, she constantly struggled to break free from this relationship. On the other hand, she couldn't bear to leave Yangqing City. After all, she spent the best 5 years of her youth here. In the end, she left and returned to her hometown. Perhaps she needed to go into seclusion for a while. When she returned, she would be a brand new Duan Xueqing. Poplar Fruit felt that this was pretty good. Before Duan Xueqing left, he gave her a few linguistics and translation books with a smile. Good luck. Study hard and walk the path you like. Duan Xueqing left, but she firmly believed that she would return. There's one more update today. Please recommend me. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 374. Sixth update. University exams usually lasted for 1 to 2 weeks on a Monday. Some colleges had already finished their exams long ago, while others were still taking their time with one exam a day. Every time this happened, there would always be some poor students cramming for a big book at night. His phone's Weibo and other social media apps would constantly refresh with photos of his friends partying all night. With tears streaming down his face, he could only silently leave 2 words at the end of his post. Our friendship is over. Poplar Fruit didn't have to take the exam, but standing on the lawn outside the teaching building, his heart was not calm. Today was Fang Beibei's last exam, and it was also the college English exam that she was most afraid of. Poplar Fruit had specially come outside to wait for her. On the one hand, he was worried about Fang Beibei's performance. He didn't know if Fang Beibei could get a good grade after more than half a semester of private tutoring. Previously, Poplar Fruit had given Fang Beibei a test with a set of old questions. Fang Beibei had done well, scoring a little over 80 points. Compared to her previous grades, which were difficult to even pass, Fang Beibei had improved tremendously. However, who knew what the situation would be like during the exam? On the other hand, Poplar Fruit himself was a little nervous. He was prepared to confess today. He had secretly planned this for half a month, and prepared everything that needed to be prepared. However, when he thought about confessing, he felt very nervous. It wasn't that he hadn't confessed before. At that time, Poplar Fruit had confessed with the mentality that he would be labeled a good person. He didn't have any psychological burden. And in the end, he succeeded. Even now, when he thought about it, it felt like a dream. However, it seemed a little different this time. Poplar Fruit was very eager to confess successfully. However, he was also worried. What if the confession didn't succeed? From then on, would Fang Beibei disappear from his life? Just thinking about it made Poplar Fruit want to retreat. However, Poplar Fruit did not want to delay any longer. He was afraid that his confession would fail, but he was even more afraid that he would do nothing and watch as Fang Beibei was embraced by another boy who beat him to it. He wanted to be with Fang Beibei, so he had to take the risk. Kiki was running on the green grass, screaming, laughing, and chasing naughty Goldie under the warm sunshine. According to his usual habit, Poplar Fruit would definitely take out his phone and record this scene silently. But Poplar Fruit didn't. Even if Chi-Chi accidentally stepped on a small grass pit and fell down, Yangwu didn't pay any more attention to her when he saw that his daughter was completely fine after climbing up on her own. He was nervously reciting the words he would use in his confession later today. In fact, with Poplar Fruit's photographic memory, he didn't need to repeat this draft a second time. It was deeply engraved in his mind. However, under the psychological effect, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but recite it over and over again, for fear that he would forget it when he was nervous. Papa, Papa. Kiki was more than 10 meters away from Poplar Fruit, jumping and calling. Poplar Fruit fixed his eyes and walked to his daughter's position. What's wrong? Poplar Fruit walked to his daughter's side and lovingly touched her little head. Her hair was as soft as ever, but Fang Beibei braided Kiki's hair. It was very beautiful, but also very uncomfortable. At this time, my daughter with neat bangs was standing next to Kiki. She looked to be about 4 or 5 years old, and was a head taller than Kiki. She was also pink and very cute. Poplar Fruit didn't know if his taste had changed after he became a father. Now, when he looked at all the children, he felt that they were very close and very cute. Little sister. Kiki thought for a while, but couldn't think of a better way to call her. She lightly fanned her nose and said breathlessly, "Little sister wants to play with Kiki." Sometimes, some people said that women were more suitable than men to take care of children. This wasn't unreasonable. Although Poplar Fruit took care of Kiki in almost every possible way, he still lacked a talent compared to female mothers, and that was communication. Poplar Fruit preferred to stay at home by himself and learn about the little tricks and methods of raising children through the internet. Female mothers would take their children out and find other mothers to chat and share their experiences. At this time, they could also let their children interact with other children and improve their children's social skills. Poplar Fruit didn't consider this point. If he didn't go out, Kiki rarely had the chance to play with other children of the same age. Therefore, when Kiki met a little sister who was a little older than her who wanted to chat and play with her, she was nervous. Poplar Fruit squatted down and smiled as he held Kiki's little hand. He looked into her big watery eyes and said, "This is a good thing. Kiki, why don't you ask this little sister's name?" Kiki timidly looked at the little sister with neat bangs and asked in a childish voice, "Little sister, what's your name?" "My name is Lu Sichuan. You can call me Sister Cici." The little sister with neat bangs thought for a while and said loudly. After Kiki asked, she didn't know what to do. She looked at her father as if asking for help. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Since you asked this little sister's name, you should also introduce yourself." Therefore, Kiki followed suit and said, "Sister Cici, my name is Yang Luachi. You can call me Kiki. Dad and the others also call me Kiki." "Kiki he." Lu Sichuan happily pulled Kiki's little hand. "I just saw that your family has a big dog. Can I touch it?" The two little ones began to talk. Poplar Fruit looked at his daughter with satisfaction. Although he still hadn't thought of this problem, he felt that Kiki could play with other children. This was a good improvement. "Your child is so smart." A female voice sounded in Poplar Fruit's ear. Poplar Fruit looked up and saw a young woman in her 30s with neat bangs. Her hairstyle was exactly the same as her daughter's. Poplar Fruit smiled and stood up. He said, "No, you see, she doesn't even know how to play with children she doesn't know." "That's because Kiki is still young." The young woman smiled. "She's only 2 or 3 years old. How can she learn so quickly?" When Cici was her age, she couldn't even speak properly. She misunderstood Kiki's age. Poplar Fruit smiled and didn't refute. Kiki might have inherited his good genes. Not only was she smart, but her body also developed quickly. She was only a little over a year old, but she looked like a 2 or 3-year-old child. "Let Sister Cici take care of Kiki more. You see, she's still shy, haha." Poplar Fruit pointed at his daughter and laughed. Although Kiki was by her father's side and had the courage to talk to Sister Cici, who she had just met, her little face was still flushed red. It was as if she had been basked in the sun. It was very cute. There will be a small explosion in the next 2 days. There will be 4 updates. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Looking at Kiki walking with joy, Poplar Fruit smiled. Walking to the teaching building, Poplar Fruit found that while he was dawdling, Fong Beibei had already left the examination room and walked downstairs. She was gathered with her roommates, happily talking about something. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, and then walked over. "Hey, he's here." Lu Ruhua's eyes were the sharpest. Before Poplar Fruit walked to their side, she saw him and hurriedly reported. All of a sudden, all the girls looked at Poplar Fruit in unison. Today Fong Beibei was still so beautiful. At this moment, Poplar Fruit only had eyes for Fong Beibei, who looked back with a smile. There was a beautiful girl in the Southern Kingdom, standing in the mortal world, with a smile that could topple a city, and another smile that could topple a country. Dressing was no longer important. Her bright eyes had already intoxicated Poplar Fruit. It was also because of his nervous mood that Poplar Fruit did not notice that Fong Beibei's roommates, who had always been friendly to him, looked at him with a complicated expression today. Only the petite and cute Lin Xingshan looked at Poplar Fruit with a worried expression. However, these were not important. Poplar Fruit was only thinking about Fang Beibei today, and there was no room for anything else in his mind. Kiki ran over first and threw herself into Fang Beibei's arms. She happily told her about today's harvest. She made a new friend. Poplar Fruit paused for a moment, then slowly walked over and asked with a smile, "How was the exam?" Fang Beibei was very busy. She raised her head from Kiki's whispers and looked at Poplar Fruit with a smile, and said, "It was okay. I think I performed at the same level as when you tested me. The questions weren't very difficult. We just checked the questions with Beibei, and we got a lot of them right." Lin Xingshan happily added for Fang Beibei. "That's good." Poplar Fruit was very happy for Fang Beibei. This was because he wasn't worried that Fang Beibei wouldn't be able to reach the standard of 80 points. What he was worried about was that Fang Beibei had failed so many times in the past, and whether this psychological effect would affect her performance. Now it seems that it should be in the bag. How about you guys? How did you guys do? Poplar Fruit was in a good mood. It was rare for him to show concern for Fang Beibei's roommates. Lulei proudly raised her head and said, "I passed CET for in English. This final exam is a piece of cake." Lu Ruhua shrugged. She and Wu Yani used their actions to show that they did not care about the exam. Lin Xingshan whispered to Poplar Fruit, "Sister Yani is very good. She usually gets more than 90 points in English." "Okay, I know you guys are good. Stop showing off here." Fang Beibei stretched out her empty hand and tickled Lulei's waist. The latter jumped up because of her tickling. "We were just discussing that the holidays are coming, so we should celebrate." Fang Beibei smiled and said to Poplar Fruit. This was exactly what Poplar Fruit wanted. He said happily, "Okay, how about we have a meal to celebrate?" Fang Beibei hesitated and said, "No need, right? We just want to sing karaoke." "It's okay," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Let's have lunch first, then sing karaoke in the afternoon. I know a good restaurant with a karaoke room next door. After lunch, we can go there directly." "Okay. I want to go." Lu Ruhua, who loved to play the most, did not care about complicated thoughts at this time. She took the lead and raised her hand and shouted happily, Me too, me too." Lin Xingshan raised her hand, not to be outdone. "Let's go together. I'll pay," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Fang Beibei glanced at Poplar Fruit. She had a strange premonition today. She could not tell what it was, but she really did not want to go. However, her friends had already sold her out for fun. Even Wu Yani, who was the least talkative, held her hand and looked at her with longing eyes. "Okay, let's go," Fang Beibei said helplessly. Chapter 376. Second update. Luckily, Poplar Fruit's Land Rover was big enough. Fang Beibei sat in the front passenger seat with Kiki in her arms. The four girls in the back squeezed a little, and were able to fit everyone in. The restaurant had been booked a long time ago. They had asked Big Brother He about the place. Not only was the restaurant located in a busy area, but the service was also very high-end. The dishes on the menu started at a few hundred yuan. At that time, Poplar Fruit was shocked. Other than eating with Zheng Yujie in Beijing, Poplar Fruit had never ordered such expensive dishes. Normally, it would be difficult to even get a better room, let alone borrow other people's equipment. However, when Poplar Fruit mentioned Big Brother He's name, the restaurant manager's face immediately changed. Not only did he promise that he would satisfy all of Poplar Fruit's requests, but he also wanted to give Poplar Fruit a free meal. Poplar Fruit was already very grateful for their help. He didn't want the restaurant to give him a free meal. After all, this was a favor from Big Brother He. The restaurant manager took a roundabout route and gave Poplar Fruit a gold card. Anyway, as long as he came to spend money, he could get a 40% discount with the card. What kind of concept was this? If Poplar Fruit ordered a 5,000 yuan dish, then he only needed to pay 2,000 yuan. A 40% discount, the restaurant would probably only be able to recover their cost. Poplar Fruit didn't want to accept it, but the manager said, "If you don't accept it, we won't help you." So Poplar Fruit had no choice but to accept it. After getting out of the car, the girls were stunned by the magnificent decoration of the restaurant in front of them. Poplar Fruit, you're not lying to us, are you? Lu Ruhua stared at the big restaurant in front of her. Without turning her head, she murmured, "Don't tell me you stopped here and took us to the food stall behind the restaurant." Haha, yes, we're going to pass through here and eat at the food stall from the back of the restaurant. Poplar Fruit laughed and teased her. I'm not as easy to bully as Bebe. Lu Ruhua held her head high and said, "Since you brought us sisters here, we'll eat here. Also, I'll order the most expensive dishes later. I want abalone and lobster." Poplar Fruit said heroically, "Okay, order whatever you want to eat. Today you have the final say." Fong Bebe wasn't happy. She stared at Poplar Fruit and said, "Why did we come to this kind of place again? It's very. Let's change it." "Don't." Poplar Fruit cried out in shock. He actually guessed that Fong Bebe would say this. She couldn't stand being extravagant and wasteful. But helplessly, the restaurant that met his requirements the most was this restaurant. So he prepared an excuse. "Actually, this restaurant is opened by my friend." Looking at Fong Bebe's eyes of disbelief, Poplar Fruit hurriedly took out the gold card from his trouser pocket and said, "Look, this is given to me by him. It's 40% discount. I think since there's such good treatment, why don't we give it a try? Anyway, it's rare for everyone to be happy. It's not like we eat here every day." Fong Bebe glanced at it, but didn't take a closer look. She knew that Poplar Fruit wouldn't lie to her. Moreover, like what Poplar Fruit said, it's rare to come here. Just treat it as experiencing life. Caring too much would make life boring. "I've already booked the room," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He ran to the lobby manager and said a few words. Then someone took them to the second floor. Kiki didn't let Fong Bebe hold her this time. She ran to her father's side and let her father hold her hand. Step by step, they walked up the stairs. Kiki was too small. If it wasn't for Poplar Fruit gently lifting her up, she wouldn't be able to step up the stairs even if she leaned back and raised her legs. Even so, Kiki still liked the feeling of climbing the stairs by herself. Being lifted up by her father and then put down. She felt like she was riding on the clouds. It was very fun. She happily counted the steps one by one, using English. 1, 2, 3. Kiki's pronunciation was perfect, and it attracted the attention of many diners. Poplar Fruit wasn't too surprised. His daughter learned things very quickly. These things were taught to her very early. It wasn't the first time for her to count steps. Of course, it was very interesting that Poplar Fruit hadn't taught Kiki how to count in her mother tongue. Instead, she learned how to count in English first. Did this count as skipping a grade? When they arrived at the private room, everyone exclaimed. The room was too big. It was at least 30 square meters. It could be used to hold a small party. There were only 7 of them, including Kiki. Wouldn't it be too wasteful to use such a room? Not only Fong Bebe, but even Lu Ruhua, who wanted to kill Poplar Fruit, expressed her concern. Before Poplar Fruit could answer, the waiter smiled and said, "Ladies, please don't worry. Gold VIP members are free of charge." This explanation made the girls feel relieved. Fong Bebe also tacitly accepted Poplar Fruit's arrangement. Lu Lei was the most lively. She ran around excitedly. She sat on the luxurious sofa for a while, then ran to the big table and turned the turntable on it. "Let's order first." Poplar Fruit took the menu from the waiter and handed it to the girls. Before Lu Ruhua could sit down, she couldn't wait to flip open the menu. When she saw the first page, she fell back into the chair and muttered, "Mom, it's so expensive. It's so expensive." Fong Bebe also opened the menu. On the first page, there was an Australian lobster that cost 1,888 yuan. She frowned. The first few pages were filled with high-end dishes such as abalone or bird's nest that cost thousands of RMB. Fong Bebe quickly flipped to the back. With the super expensive dishes at the front as a backdrop, the 300 to 400 RMB prices at the back were much more pleasing to the eye. However, she still felt her heart skip a beat. Although Lu Ruhua shouted that she wanted the most expensive lobster, she didn't dare to be so ruthless towards the end. When Poplar Fruit asked her if she wanted it, she waved her hand and refused again. What should they order? The girls were worried. The dishes here were too expensive. If they just ordered a few dishes, it would be more than 1,000 yuan. With the same price, if they went to a food stall, they didn't know how good the food would be. Why don't we go somewhere else? Fang Beibei said hesitantly. She wanted to save some money for Poplar Fruit, although she knew that Poplar Fruit wasn't short of money. The other girls also nodded in agreement. Even Lin Xingshan, who came from a good family, couldn't afford this price. No, let's go to this place. Poplar Fruit said decisively. Don't forget, I have a card that can give a 40% discount. Poplar Fruit forced them to order one dish each. Fang Beibei hesitated and ordered the cheapest soup, but it was still 366 yuan. The other girls ordered about the same price. Wu Yanni's was slightly more expensive, more than 500 yuan. How about I take that soup away? Fang Beibei sat next to Poplar Fruit. She gently nudged him and said, including your 5 dishes, it's enough. I'm not thirsty now. Chapter 377. Third update. One later update. Fang Beibei wanted to save a little, but to no avail. Instead, Poplar Fruit added a few more dishes. Poplar Fruit's actions actually had the intention of pleasing Fang Beibei and her roommates. Under the temptation of delicious food, Lu Ruhua and the others' attitudes towards him did indeed change. In fact, the price of the dishes was no longer important. Poplar Fruit didn't even care if the dishes meticulously prepared by the restaurant's chef were delicious or not. He didn't eat much himself. His heart had already floated for dozens of minutes. The complex feelings of worry and expectation intertwined, making him appear a little absent-minded. What's wrong? Fang Beibei didn't eat as much as the other girls. She noticed Poplar Fruit's strange behavior, and thought that her unhappy expression made Poplar Fruit sad. In the end, men still cared about face. He sincerely invited her and her roommates to eat, but she still made excuses. Fang Beibei felt a little regretful. She had a strange feeling that she had let Poplar Fruit down. Don't be unhappy. I like today's dishes very much. Thank you. Fang Beibei pushed Poplar Fruit and said softly. She also looked around at the other 4 girls in the dormitory, and found that they were all busy eating, and didn't see her muttering. She was slightly relieved. Poplar Fruit was stunned by Fang Beibei's words. He scratched his head and laughed. I'm not unhappy. As long as you like it. The girls didn't have a big appetite. Although it was delicious, their chopsticks didn't stop eating for a quarter of an hour before they gradually stopped. Lin Xingshan, who was the first to eat, had already sat down on the chair and rubbed her belly. She cried out, what should I do? I ate a lot today. I have to go on a diet when I go back. Kiki also imitated her and burped. Her cute appearance made everyone unable to help but laugh. Seeing that the girls were all sitting there chatting, Poplar Fruit pretended to get up to go to the toilet. In fact, he went around the screen and sneaked to the door. The manager of the restaurant was already waiting outside. Poplar Fruit smiled apologetically and took the microphone from the manager along with a bouquet of pink lilies decorated with stars. After you go in, it will start in 3 seconds. The manager raised 3 fingers at Poplar Fruit and instructed. Poplar Fruit nodded. He had practiced this before, and Poplar Fruit understood the process. As soon as he turned around, Poplar Fruit's heart began to beat wildly. At this important moment, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but feel nervous. He couldn't even move his feet. Come on. The manager patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder gently, wishing him well and encouraging him. After taking 2 deep breaths, Poplar Fruit forcibly suppressed his chaotic state of mind and walked inside. After entering, Poplar Fruit found that his heart was beating even faster. What is this? The girls behind the screen suddenly exclaimed. In the room, Lin Xingshan pointed at a silk curtain that was slowly rising. She covered her mouth and asked her roommates to look over. After the curtain was pulled up by the bearing, a huge LCD screen was revealed. Fang Beibei curiously turned her head and saw the LCD screen lit up. Did Kiki press something by mistake? Lin Xingshan glanced at Kiki, who was full and rolling on the sofa. But she didn't find anything. Suddenly, A melodious piece of music rang out, startling the girls. The sound system in this private room was very good. There were high-end speakers all around, forming a surround sound system, giving people a feeling of immersion. But the girls weren't mentally prepared for the sudden sound. Hearing the music, Kiki poked her head out from the big sofa and looked curiously. This was the final video that was edited by the special effects team of Call Beast. Poplar Fruit didn't show Kiki, so she didn't know. But Fong Beibei felt that something was wrong. She remembered Poplar Fruit's strange behavior today, and remembered Kiki telling her that Poplar Fruit prepared a surprise for her. Fong Beibei's heart couldn't help but beat wildly. After the opening music, only a melodious melody was left. It was like a slideshow with even more dazzling special effects. The photos of Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit after they met began to slowly appear on the huge LCD screen like a beautiful and dreamy story. Poplar Fruit held the flowers and held the microphone as he slowly walked out from the side of the LCD screen. He didn't dare to walk too fast. If he walked too fast, his nervousness would be revealed. Beibei, cough cough, I know that the luckiest thing that happened to me in my life was around this time last year when I met you by the lake at school. But Poplar Fruit was still nervous, and his voice cracked a little when he spoke the first sentence. Fortunately, his voice became clear after that, and the more he spoke, the better he sounded. Deep emotions flowed out from Poplar Fruit, like he was reciting a poem. Accompanied by the melodious melody, it was as if the entire room was immersed in his deep feelings. Fong Beibei listened to Poplar Fruit reminiscing about every detail of the past year. Her expression was a little complicated, and the light in her eyes was a struggle between longing and sadness. She bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth, and there was a trace of disorder in her breathing. The light from the LCD screen blocked Poplar Fruit's line of sight, so he didn't see this scene. But according to his original plan, he slowly walked toward Fong Beibei with hope and true love. After the confession, Poplar Fruit really recited a poem. Or rather, he was reciting a love letter he wrote to Fong Beibei. I don't know when it started, but your figure, graceful like a veil, kept appearing in front of my eyes. I don't know when it started, but your voice, clear like a wind chime, often lingered in my ears. I don't know when it started, but your eyes, brighter than the stars in my mind, gave me the direction to move forward. Only then did I understand that I love you. I've been missing you day and night, and I can't control myself. The deep feelings in Poplar Fruit's eyes made Fong Beibei confused. She was a little like a frightened rabbit, wanting to hide, but unable to. I love your kindness, I love your innocence, I love every bit of you and Kiki. Poplar Fruit said gently. On the screen, there were also photos of Kiki and Fong Beibei laughing happily. These were all secretly taken by Poplar Fruit, and no one else had seen them. I think no one in the world can match your kindness to Kiki. Even more than me, you have to understand Kiki. I think I've been attached to the warmth and sweetness of our time together. I just want to be able to cherish you forever. Finally, Poplar Fruit quoted a poem by Sangyang Jiatsua. Come into my arms, or let me live in your heart, silently love, silently rejoice. Beibei, I like you. Be my girlfriend. Handing over the lily in his hand, Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei with a very sincere gaze. So sincere that it seemed to be able to melt steel. The video also finished playing. The private room was silent, and only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. No one was calm in their hearts, and they were all waiting for Fong Beibei's final response. Chapter 378. Fourth update. Some readers said that if Beibei doesn't agree, they'll abandon the book. Actually, there's no need for that. The female lead of this book is clearly Fong Beibei. What's there to worry about? Do you still remember the opening sentence of this volume? Spring is coming. Although there will still be a bit of winter chill, the flowers will eventually bloom in the warmth of spring. No. Fong Beibei suddenly said a word softly. Although this word wasn't loud, it was clearly heard by Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's roommates. The originally sweet atmosphere suddenly stagnated. It was as if the melodious melody had suddenly stopped. It made people confused and uncomfortable. Poplar Fruit was stunned. His hands, which were moving forward to send the flowers, stopped in midair. The flowers were delicate, but it was no longer suitable for the occasion. No, Fong Beibei added a shaking motion this time. Her eyes were so flustered, as if she was worried that she wouldn't be able to insist on this choice. Fong Beibei turned her head and ran past Poplar Fruit to the door of the private room in a panic. She pulled it open and escaped outside. The door opened and closed. The door made a loud noise when it hit the door frame. It was as if a broken heart was suddenly scattered in the wilderness. Poplar Fruit didn't move at all. He lowered his head and froze on the spot like a clay sculpture. Before confessing, Poplar Fruit had thought about the good and bad endings. Of course, there were more good endings. Being rejected was a minefield that he didn't dare to touch. But now he was really rejected. Poplar Fruit didn't know what to do in the future. He couldn't think. His brain was already a mess. Lu Ruhua and the others looked at Poplar Fruit and sighed softly. They got up one by one and chased after Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei lowered her head, covered her mouth, and ran out. She did not even take the elevator. She rushed down the stairs in a daze until she reached the entrance of the restaurant. On the street outside the door, there was an endless stream of people coming and going. As the saying goes, the world is bustling, and everyone comes for profit. The world is bustling, and everyone goes for profit. The whole world seemed to have become very strange. No one noticed that a sorrowful girl was standing in front of this big hotel that was renovated like a palace and lost her way. To the left or to the right. Fong Beibei took a step forward and then stopped. Her eyes began to mist, and tears began to seep out from the corners of her eyes. Isn't this too arbitrary? Fong Beibei didn't know that she regretted it so much. How sad will uncle be if I reject him like this? The kind-hearted girl's heart was in a mess. As soon as this thought popped up in her head, it grew crazily like bamboo shoots after the rain. Her eyes kept flashing past Poplar Fruit's dim eyes when she passed by Poplar Fruit. No. Fong Beibei stood at the door for a long time. She suddenly wiped her tears, turned around, and ran back. She had just taken 2 steps when Lu Ruhua and Lu Lei hugged her from left and right, preventing her from running inside. Let go of me. Fong Beibei shouted with tears flowing down her face. What are you doing? Lu Ruhua also asked loudly in her ear. I want to explain it to him. Fong Beibei murmured, bean-sized tears flowing down. What's there to explain? Lu Ruhua asked somewhat angrily. You rejected him, and now your heart hurts. As early as half a month ago, during the night chat in the dormitory, Lu Ruhua wanted to completely break up Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit. A man like this is not worth your time. These were her original words. Lu Lei and Wu Yani didn't agree to Fong Beibei being with a man with a child. After that incident, they were even more against it. However, at that time Fong Beibei only said, "It's okay, I know how to deal with it." Then, as usual, she helped Poplar Fruit look after Kiki. Think about how he lied to you. Lu Ruhua shouted in Fong Beibei's ear, word by word. But am I too cruel? Fong Beibei asked with tears in her eyes. Just thinking about Poplar Fruit's dazed look, Fong Beibei's heart felt suffocated. What's cruel about it? Breakups are all like this. You have to be firm, you have to be decisive. Lu Lei retorted. What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Ruhua glared at her, hugged Fong Beibei and comforted her. You and Poplar Fruit didn't break up. You didn't even hold hands. How could you break up? It's okay, Beibei, we'll accompany you to relax. After one night you'll be fine. She knew that not to mention one night, the wound probably wouldn't heal for a long time, but she felt that this was the best choice. With that, the 3 of them hugged Fong Beibei and walked out. Where's Shanshan? Walking to the door, Lu Lei was the first to notice the problem. Yeah, where did she run off to? Lu Ruhua looked around and asked curiously. Don't tell me she went to the washroom? Shall I go look for her? Lu Lei looked into the distance and suddenly found a person in the elevator that just opened. She happily waved and said, No need to look for her, I saw her. Wait for me. I'm coming. Lin Xingshan carried her small backpack and waved back as she hurriedly ran over. She was still shouting from afar. Lu Lei smiled and held the door for her. Lin Xingshan was still out of breath from running on Little Duan, and when she arrived, she was out of breath. Lu Ruhua freed a hand and gently patted Lin Xingshan's back. She asked somewhat reproachfully. Why did you fall behind? Don't tell me you went to the washroom? You didn't even tell us you were going. Lin Xingshan finally managed to catch her breath. She looked up and smiled apologetically. Sorry, I left my bag inside. I went back to get it later and forgot to tell you guys. It's okay, let's go. Lu Ruhua carried Feng Beibei, and the few of them walked away from the school. What's wrong with Beibei? Lin Xingshan saw Feng Beibei's teary appearance and asked curiously, what happened? She still wants to go back and explain to that poplar fruit. Isn't that unnecessary? Lu Lei walked beside Lin Xingshan and said angrily. That's enough. From now on no one is allowed to mention that word. Let's take a walk by the river and let Beibei have some peace and quiet. Lu Ruhua turned her head and said seriously. Lu Lei stuck out her tongue and quickly shut her big mouth. Lin Xingshan didn't continue speaking. She walked behind them and looked at Feng Beibei leaning in Lu Ruhua's arms. Her tears seemed to still be flowing. However, with Feng Beibei's personality, her tears wouldn't flow out. Lin Xingshan sighed softly in her heart. They're clearly a good couple. Why don't they communicate properly? Beibei is also the same. She's always suppressing her feelings. She's unwilling to let go and doesn't dare to let go. That bastard in the past hurt her too much. While no one was paying attention, Lin Xingshan looked back at the hotel that wasn't far away. She said in her heart, Brother Yang, don't let me down. I know that you're a good person. You're not like what they said. Moreover, Beibei still likes you. Chapter 379. First update. The reason why Lin Xingshan fell behind wasn't because she forgot to take something as she said. When she left the private room with her sisters, she deliberately stayed at the back and didn't go out. Brother Yang. After Lin Xingshan waited for her sisters to run out, she turned to Poplar Fruit and pushed Poplar Fruit, who seemed to be frozen. You're just going to let it go like this? Poplar Fruit gradually woke up from his chaotic emotions at this time. He glanced at Lin Xingshan blankly and asked in a low voice, Shan, why? Why did she say no? Because of the stupid things you did. Lin Xingshan said angrily. Her relationship with Poplar Fruit was quite good. She deliberately stayed behind to explain to Poplar Fruit what was going on. What did I do? Poplar Fruit's voice almost couldn't find any tone. It was so depressed that it made people uncomfortable. Lin Xingshan briefly explained that Feng Beibei inadvertently learned from Kiki that Poplar Fruit kissed another woman. Not only that, Lin Xingshan said. Also, you left Beibei alone for the whole day. After you came back, you brought a beauty with you in the car. Beibei secretly cried after she came back that night. Ahua asked for a long time before she found out. Poplar Fruit understood as soon as he heard it. The kiss should be because Kiki inadvertently told her about the scene where he was kissed by Zheng Yujia. The so-called bringing a beauty in the car was the incident where Poplar Fruit was arrested and sent to prison a few days ago. Brother Yang, you're a good person. Why did you learn to be fickle like others? Lin Xingshan asked. Do you know that what Beibei hates the most is others lying to her? In the past, Lin Xingshan stopped in time, almost revealing the heavenly secret. These are all misunderstandings. I don't know why she didn't tell me before. Poplar Fruit held his head and fell down on the chair next to him. What did you say before? Lin Xingshan asked. What's your relationship? According to what Beibei said, you are just ordinary friends. How can she interfere in your affairs? But I really didn't lie to her. Poplar Fruit excitedly waved his hands and asked. Those are all misunderstandings. I can explain. You don't have to explain it to me. Lin Xingshan took a step back and said. She felt that she had spoken too harshly, so she adjusted her tone and said softly, if you want to explain, you have to explain it to Beibei. I think that after Beibei knew about those things, she still got along with you for so long. She must have you in her heart. Aya. Lin Xingshan calculated the time and exclaimed. After talking for so long, I have to go. After saying that, Lin Xingshan carried her small backpack and hurriedly chased after him. Only Yang Gua, who was in a daze, and Chi-Chi, who didn't understand, were left in the room. If you want to explain it to Beibei. Lin Xingshan's voice was still echoing in Poplar Fruit's mind. However, the confession had used up all of Poplar Fruit's strength and consumed all of Poplar Fruit's courage. When he thought of being rejected, Poplar Fruit hesitated. People left one by one. The atmosphere in the room was very strange. Kiki felt a little depressed. She slid down from the sofa in fear, ran to her father's side, and hugged her father's calf. "Papa, what is a girlfriend?" Kiki asked curiously. Poplar Fruit picked up Kiki. Looking at her innocent little face, he complained in his heart, but when the words came to his mouth, they turned into a sigh. In fact, he couldn't blame Kiki, could he? Kiki was just a child's babble. If he hadn't been so stupid and didn't provoke so many girls, he wouldn't have become like this today. Well, it's all Xiaohan's fault. A girlfriend is. Poplar Fruit didn't explain further. He didn't know how to explain it to Kiki, so he could only answer, "Kiki, you'll understand when you grow up." Continuing to be silent, Poplar Fruit fell into his own thoughts again. Kiki was a little afraid of her father's mood. Moreover, she also remembered that today was the first time Fong Beibei left her without saying goodbye. She timidly asked, "Papa, did Kiki make Papa and Beibei angry?" Poplar Fruit's thoughts were interrupted by Kiki. Just as he was about to answer, he didn't expect Kiki to apologize first. Kiki knows her mistake. "Papa and Beibei, don't be angry, okay?" Poplar Fruit was a little surprised and touched. He gently kissed Kiki's forehead and said, "Kiki, you're so silly. It's not your fault. It's Papa who made Beibei angry." "Why?" Kiki asked in confusion. Why would Papa make Sister Beibei angry? With Kiki's little brain, she still didn't understand the cause and effect of this. Poplar Fruit didn't continue to answer. He was thinking in his heart. Even Kiki could apologize so frankly. Why couldn't he explain clearly and apologize to Fong Beibei? Could it be that an adult was not as courageous as a child? Kiki, Papa knows. Papa will go and apologize to Beibei. Papa also knows his mistake. Poplar Fruit said softly as he hugged his daughter. He stood up and walked outside. The pink and delicate lilies were left in the private room. This was meaningless now. If he wanted to make Fong Beibei change her mind, he could only use his true feelings. Nothing else would work. Walking to the door of the private room, Poplar Fruit saw the manager standing to the side. From his comforting eyes, Poplar Fruit knew that the manager had also guessed his ending. "Sorry, I wasted your arrangement," Poplar Fruit said apologetically. No. The manager hurriedly waved his hand and said, "It's a pity that I couldn't help you. Let's go and settle the bill." Poplar Fruit smiled. "Please hurry up. I still have to catch up with the girl who ran out first and explain to her. The money problem is not urgent. Let's talk about it later." The manager said righteously, "Mr. Yang, you quickly go and catch up with her. Leave this place to us to clean up." Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, nodded gratefully at him and ran out. "Which way?" Poplar Fruit carried Kiki and ran all the way to the entrance of the restaurant. He looked left and right but didn't see Fong Beibei's figure. He was in a dilemma. Just like Fong Beibei, he didn't know which direction to go. They should be back to school. Poplar Fruit was decisive. He looked to the left and said firmly in his heart. Then he chased in the right direction. Of course, Poplar Fruit ran in the wrong direction. Although his footsteps were fast, he ran for nearly 15 minutes and ran out of more than 3 streets, but he still didn't see Fong Beibei's figure. I'm so stupid." Poplar Fruit stopped and patted his head. "They should have left by car." "Papa, it hurts." In the vast sea of people, only Kiki was the most considerate. She leaned in Poplar Fruit's arms and used her fingers to gently massage the place where her father hit himself. Chapter 380. Second update. Poplar Fruit returned to the hotel later and drove his own car back to school. He parked his car below Fong Beibei's dormitory. He hesitated for a moment and left Kiki in the car. The car windows were rolled down, so Kiki would not be in danger. After getting out of the car, Poplar Fruit looked up at Fong Beibei's dormitory and took out his phone to call Fong Beibei. After a few rings, the call was picked up. However, before Poplar Fruit could speak, the call was hung up again. Poplar Fruit listened to the silence on the phone and was a little dumbfounded. However, although Poplar Fruit was a little stupid and cowardly when it came to relationships, once he was firm in his beliefs, he would persevere. Therefore, he pressed the button a second time and called Fong Beibei's number again. This time, Fong Beibei's phone was switched off. Poplar Fruit was a little upset that she did not pick up his phone. He gritted his teeth and looked at Fong Beibei's dormitory. He decided to wait until Fong Beibei came down. This time, he did not want to give up again. This time, Poplar Fruit decided to use his persistence to move Fong Beibei. What Poplar Fruit did not know was that the person who had hung up on him was not Fong Beibei. After Fong Beibei saw her phone ring, she hesitated for a moment and still picked up Poplar Fruit's call. However, Lu Ruhua, who was beside her, noticed and snatched the phone away. She hung up and turned off the phone. What Poplar Fruit did not expect was that Fong Beibei was not in the dormitory at all. The girls were sitting on the stone bench by the river, not saying a word, accompanying Fong Beibei in a daze. No matter where Fong Beibei was, Poplar Fruit thought that Fong Beibei was upstairs, or perhaps secretly watching him from a corner. Poplar Fruit stood straight in front of Fong Beibei's dormitory building, like a small white poplar at a border outpost. The girls walked in and out. Poplar Fruit was such a big target, so he naturally became their focus. They pointed at Poplar Fruit and whispered, muttering about which girl was so cruel to leave such a handsome guy out in the sun. Poplar Fruit stood in front of the girls' dormitory like a sentinel. Even the dormitory manager came over to persuade Poplar Fruit to leave, but Poplar Fruit was very firm. He stood there without moving, his eyes only looking at the entrance of the dormitory, hoping to see that beautiful figure appear. The afternoon of June had already caught up with the footsteps of summer. The sun shone through the gaps between the branches and leaves of the king coconut tree, leaving camouflage spots of light on Poplar Fruit's face. Poplar Fruit did not move, but his face was already covered in fine beads of sweat. He pursed his lips, his face resolute, like a soldier who had experienced hundreds of battles, never giving up. Accompanied by the sound of cicadas and accompanied by the warm and cool breeze, Kiki yawned and fell asleep in the car out of boredom. Time seemed to pass very slowly, but it also seemed to pass very quickly. Poplar Fruit did not know how long he had been standing there. He did not know how many people came to secretly look at him and secretly take pictures of him. But the sky gradually darkened. It was not evening yet, but it was going to rain. As the saying goes, the weather in June is like a child's face. In the morning, the sky was clear, but now, it was going to rain heavily. The wind blew the gravel, and the dragonflies flew very low. Inside the dormitory, there were already a few sounds of the door being blown shut by the wind, but Fong Beibei still did not appear. Poplar Fruit was a little depressed. He returned to the side of the car and rolled up the window for the sleeping Kiki. He also turned on the small lights and the air conditioner inside. There was no refrigeration, just to ensure that there was enough fresh air. He did not intend to leave dejectedly. In Poplar Fruit's dictionary, there was no such thing as giving up halfway. There was only stubbornness and perseverance. So what if it was raining? Poplar Fruit was not afraid. After taking care of everything for Kiki, Poplar Fruit stood firmly in the same place. Not long after, a few figures appeared at the end of the path. A few girls were holding each other's hands and running back with smiles on their faces. Good thing it's not raining yet. Lu Ruhua turned her head and said to Fong Beibei with a smile. When it was dark, they rushed back as if they were running for their lives. They did not bring an umbrella. They were worried that after they got out of the subway, they would be drenched on the way back to the dormitory. However, Lu Ruhua noticed that Fong Beibei had stopped there, and was staring blankly in a certain direction. Lu Ruhua looked in the direction of Fong Beibei's gaze in confusion. She then realized that in front of the dormitory, Poplar Fruit was standing there, ramrod straight. Poplar Fruit. Lu Lei also saw him. She jumped up and exclaimed in a low voice. Poplar Fruit's appearance was indeed out of their expectations. Poplar Fruit had not seen them yet. He still thought that Fong Beibei was still upstairs, so he kept staring at the dormitory door. Ignore him. Lu Ruhua turned her head and said this. Fong Beibei broke free from her hands and ran past them to Poplar Fruit. Hearing the footsteps, Poplar Fruit looked to the left. He could not move his eyes away. It was her. Because of running, Fong Beibei's long hair gently fluttered in the wind. It was as if a long piece of silk was draped over her. Her eyes were slightly swollen, but her face was as beautiful as a fairy that descended from the heavens. Fong Beibei ran to Poplar Fruit's side. She took a deep breath and pretended to be calm. She said, "You should go back. It's going to rain soon." Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, "I'm not going. I want to explain to you." "You have nothing to explain to me. You should go back." Fong Beibei turned her head. She did not dare to look into Poplar Fruit's eyes. She said with heavy breathing. She felt that she was going to cry again. "No. Beibei, listen to me." Poplar Fruit anxiously said. "It's really a misunderstanding. I'm not listening." Fong Beibei's heart was in a mess. She covered her ears and ran to the dormitory. It seemed that running away was her only choice. After running to the dormitory, Fong Beibei turned around. She looked at Poplar Fruit and shouted, "It's raining. You should go back." Poplar Fruit shook his head. He firmly looked at her. He stood there motionless. After Fong Beibei shouted, she walked back to her dormitory without looking back. Lu Ruhua also led several other roommates to slowly pass by the dormitory. Some of them did not even look at Poplar Fruit. Some of them looked at Poplar Fruit with a complicated expression. There was also Lin Xingshan. She secretly waved her fist at Poplar Fruit to encourage him. The girls all went up. The dormitory was quiet again. However, Poplar Fruit was still standing in the empty space. He did not move. Today, Poplar Fruit's stubborn temper came up. No matter how big the storm was, he did not plan to leave. He must make things clear with Fong Beibei. The dark clouds in the sky piled up layer after layer. It gave off a feeling of dark clouds pressing down on the city. The sand and gravel on the ground were flying. The sound of the wind passing through the buildings and trees was getting louder and louder. Finally, a bolt of lightning cut through the sky, illuminating the dark ground. Accompanied by a few exclamations from the girls' dormitory, raindrops fell to the ground before the thunder. The raindrops were very big. When they fell to the ground, they rolled up the sand and spread out a large patch of spots. Today's 4 chapters can only be considered as the last small explosion. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 381. Third update. At first, the raindrops were only the size of beans, but after a while, the raindrops formed a curtain and became a torrential downpour. He's still downstairs. Lin Xingshan dutifully played the role of the informant. She secretly pulled open the curtains beside her bed, took a glance, and then turned around and said, "It can't be right?" The most impartial Lu Ruhua was also moved at this moment. The rain outside was too heavy, and from the sound, one could tell how terrifying it was. Fong Beibei curled up on her bed, buried her head between her knees, and her shoulders trembled. Lin Xingshan and Lu Ruhua looked at Fong Beibei with some worry. Downstairs of the girls' dormitory, Poplar Fruit was being washed by the torrential downpour. The raindrops hitting his body were actually quite strong, but Poplar Fruit relied on his physical strength to withstand it. The raindrops fell on his head, slid down his cheeks, and became a muddy patch. No matter how dense the rain was, he couldn't see far. At this moment, Poplar Fruit's eyes were blurred by the raindrops, and he couldn't open them. But he still tried his best to open his eyes, looking at the dark hole in the building, and waited in anticipation. "It's coming! It's coming!" Poplar Fruit cheered in his heart. He saw a familiar figure appear at the door, holding up an umbrella, and rushing towards him. Poplar Fruit should have been happy, but when he saw Fong Beibei rushing to his side, the small umbrella was completely useless in the torrential downpour, and her clothes were wet. Poplar Fruit's heart ached again. He suddenly had an idea, and that is he would rather Fong Beibei ignore him and not come out. He didn't want Fong Beibei to be exposed to the wind and rain. "Are you stupid?" Fong Beibei rushed in front of Poplar Fruit and shouted. The rain was so heavy that it was hard to tell whether Fong Beibei's face was covered with tears or rainwater. She tried her best to stand on her tiptoes and hold up the umbrella. She wanted to use the small umbrella to shelter Poplar Fruit, who was much taller than her, from the rain. Fong Beibei had just raised the umbrella over Poplar Fruit's head when the rainstorm swallowed the last bit of dryness on her body. This time, she was also drenched. Poplar Fruit was anxious. He pulled Fong Beibei, who was standing on her tiptoes, into his arms. How many times had he looked forward to this hug? But it was in this pouring rain that I picked you up. The girl's body was very soft. Poplar Fruit could feel it the moment he touched her. Poplar Fruit's hand clasped Fong Beibei's waist. Her slender waist could not be held. Being suddenly attacked by Poplar Fruit, Fong Beibei cried out and leaned into Poplar Fruit's arms. His hand lost strength. The umbrella slipped down and was instantly blown away by the strong wind. Poplar Fruit did not have time to think about it. The reason he hugged Fong Beibei was not to take advantage of her. He was worried that Fong Beibei would catch a cold. Poplar Fruit lifted Fong Beibei up. With his strength, he easily carried her to the eaves. It's raining so heavily. Idiot. Why did you come out? Poplar Fruit used his body to block the dripping water from the eaves. He lowered his head and looked at Fong Beibei, whose wet hair was stuck to her cheeks, and questioned. Isn't that because you're an idiot? Standing outside in the rain like a fool? Fong Beibei retorted. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei's sparkling red lips in a daze. His breathing began to quicken. Fong Beibei did not know what Poplar Fruit was thinking. She only felt a trace of charm lingering in her heart. But she blushed and subconsciously turned her head away. Her stubborn look did not lose to Poplar Fruit, who was standing alone in the rain. Beibei. Poplar Fruit sobered up a little. He felt that he should take this opportunity to clear up all the misunderstandings. Shanshan told me everything. I'm sorry for not telling you clearly about those two things. But it's really a misunderstanding. The wind and rain were very heavy, but the small space that Poplar Fruit separated for her did not let the wind and rain in. It was very safe. Fong Beibei did not say anything. She felt the spaciousness of Poplar Fruit's chest and the warmth emitted from his body. She felt the strength of Poplar Fruit's breathing and the strength of his heartbeat. Fong Beibei tilted her head and looked in another direction through the mist. She did not know if she was tired. She gently leaned her cheek against Poplar Fruit's right arm that was leaning against the wall and listened quietly. Poplar Fruit told her everything. The kiss that Kiki said to you is really not what you think. The situation is like this. A good friend of mine at the publishing house. Poplar Fruit explained the process of Zheng Yujia, making a scene at the wedding and pretending to be his girlfriend for him. However, Poplar Fruit still concealed Zheng Yujia's confession and feelings for him. You know that it's uncomfortable. Why did you go before? Fong Beibei did not look at him. She muttered in a low voice. Her voice was instantly swept away by the whistling wind and rain, almost inaudible. Poplar Fruit still heard it. He quickly admitted his mistake. I know I was wrong. This wedding is the last time. I won't contact her again. That's not what I meant. Fong Beibei lowered her head and did not continue. As for the misunderstanding that day when Poplar Fruit was arrested, Poplar Fruit did not hide anything. He told her everything. And that day, I did lie to you. After I met the tutor, I went to find a restaurant. I didn't deliberately not come back at noon. Something happened. I got into a fight and was arrested by the police. Later, I was rescued by a big brother of mine. The girl you saw in my car that day is called Duan Xueqing. She's my junior and also my friend. Not only was she in the car, but my good friend Song Jiwen was also in the car. My big brother was driving a car behind. No wonder you were so smelly that day. Fong Beibei turned her head. Her eyes revealed a trace of emotion. She looked at Poplar Fruit and asked, why did you get into a fight with them? There are so many restaurants. We can still change. No, it's because those guys wanted to bully Xueqing, and I found out. Poplar Fruit explained the cause and effect. Then are you hurt anywhere? Fong Beibei gently touched Poplar Fruit's arm and asked worriedly. Don't worry. Although the rain outside was a little cold, Poplar Fruit felt warm in his heart. They didn't dare to do anything to me. They only asked a few questions, and then locked me up. Who told you to stand up for them? You deserved it. Fong Beibei turned her head away in a fit of pique. She did not look at him again. Poplar Fruit was a little nervous. He gently placed his left hand on Fong Beibei's soft shoulder and asked softly, "Beibei, are you still angry with me?" Fong Beibei shook her head. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Poplar Fruit was happy. He gently hugged and supported Fong Beibei's shoulders. He pulled her almost into his embrace and asked softly, "Then Beibei, do you agree to be my girlfriend? I will treat you well in the future. Otherwise, I will be struck by lightning." Poplar Fruit raised 4 fingers and swore. Chapter 382. Fourth update. Fong Beibei turned her head and stared into Poplar Fruit's eyes. Her eyes were somewhat complicated. Poplar Fruit's heart just fell, but it was raised high again. "I have one more question." Fong Beibei took a deep breath and asked. "Ask away." Poplar Fruit quickly said, "I promise to answer truthfully. Do you really love me, or do you just want to find a stepmother for Kiki?" Fong Beibei's eyes became very calm at this moment. Don't know if it was because of the rain, Fong Beibei's chaotic thoughts finally cleared up, leaving only one question. Poplar Fruit was stunned. This question really made Poplar Fruit speechless. In fact, this question was very easy to answer. If it was Song Jiwen or any other man, he would certainly answer without hesitation. "I really love you." In fact, this question was not a question at all. For an ordinary girl, wasn't this the answer they wanted? However, Fong Beibei was not an ordinary girl, and Poplar Fruit was not an ordinary man. Poplar Fruit, whose EQ was not very high, was stuck on this question. He even began to doubt himself. Yes, I love Fong Beibei. What about her? Or is it just because Kiki likes Fong Beibei, and I love her because I love her? Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. He did not know how to answer. Poplar Fruit's mouth was wide open. His brain was spinning. Suddenly it got stuck. Countless nerves were tangled up in an instant, and he could not figure it out. Why couldn't he figure it out? From the first day Poplar Fruit met Fong Beibei, when the two of them were together, Kiki was always there. Even Poplar Fruit did not know if his feelings for Fong Beibei began when he saw Fong Beibei's beautiful back by the lake, or when he found out that Fong Beibei could be accepted by Kiki. At that time, Kiki was very young. She was never willing to leave her father's arms. However, Fong Beibei let Kiki throw herself into her arms. Moreover, Kiki gave her first kiss to Beibei. This was something that Poplar Fruit still kept in his heart. Kiki was too important in Poplar Fruit's life. Even in Poplar Fruit's eyes, Kiki's position was not as important as Kiki. Everything had to be prioritized. Did Poplar Fruit like Fong Beibei? This was without a doubt. If he did not like her, how could he be attracted to her? However, even in his dream, when he and Fong Beibei were together sweetly, Kiki was still mixed in between them. This made Poplar Fruit confused himself. Did he fall in love with Fong Beibei? Or did he fall in love with Fong Beibei because Kiki liked Fong Beibei? Poplar Fruit hesitated for a long time. It seemed that he could not find the answer to this question. He finally opened his mouth, but he could not help but ask Fong Beibei, "What's the difference between this question?" "Beibei, I know that you also like Kiki. Can't you accept her?" "There's a big difference." Fong Beibei looked very seriously into Poplar Fruit's eyes and replied, "It's true that I like Kiki, but friendship and love are two different things. The former is that you like me because you like me. The latter is that you like me because you want to find a nanny because you like me. As a friend, I'm willing to help you take care of Kiki. In other words, I'm willing to play with Kiki. However, as a lover, I can't accept that you don't love me as a person. But my value." Fong Beibei's words were very roundabout, but it was very clear. How can you think like that? Poplar Fruit could not help but refute her. However, before Poplar Fruit could finish his words, Fong Beibei used her soft palm to cover Poplar Fruit's mouth. She gently shook her head and looked at Poplar Fruit sadly, saying, "Do you know why I asked this?" Poplar Fruit shook his head honestly. "When you showed me the video at the restaurant, I watched it very seriously. I was very touched. Really, I didn't think that you would take so many photos of me in the past 6 months." Fong Beibei said softly, "But I also saw that there were a total of 37 photos in the video. 29 of them were photos of me and Kiki together, accounting for about 78.4%. There were only 12 photos of you and me at the same time. I won't talk about the probability, it's not even half. Also, I couldn't find any photos of only you and me. Poplar Fruit's head was covered in cold sweat when he heard Fong Beibei's words. His memory was very good. As he listened to Fong Beibei, he counted in his mind. The data was exactly as Fong Beibei said. However, without a calculator, Poplar Fruit knew that he would not be able to calculate the percentage in his mind. A female math genius was indeed not an ordinary person. Fong Beibei continued. Although I know that you are taking photos and it's very difficult for you to enter the camera as you wish, with such a huge contrast, isn't it obvious? I'm very worried. Do you really love me? Poplar Fruit opened his mouth, but it was covered by Fong Beibei. She shook her head. This time, she raised her beautiful face and looked at Poplar Fruit fearlessly. She said seriously, "This question is very important to me. I don't want you to brush me off. Before you answer, you have to think carefully." Poplar Fruit was anxious. He wanted to say, "I love you. How can I not love you?" However, Fong Beibei did not let him say it. She bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth, lowered her head, and said, "I'll give you 2 months to think about it. The summer vacation is coming. In these 2 months, let's not see each other, okay?" 2 months, 2 months, so long. Poplar Fruit stood there in a daze. He was a little lost and did not know how to answer Fong Beibei. 2 months was too long. It was long enough to change anything. Fong Beibei saw that Poplar Fruit did not reply. She raised her head and happened to see Poplar Fruit's gloomy eyes. Fong Beibei could not bear it. She suddenly took the initiative to hug Poplar Fruit for the first time. She wrapped her arms tightly around Poplar Fruit's waist and gently leaned her head on his chest. The front of Poplar Fruit's shirt was still dripping with water, but Fong Beibei did not have any scruples. She gently pressed against him and listened to Poplar Fruit's heartbeat. "Silly uncle," Fong Beibei said softly, "don't worry. I won't run away. I'll give you some time to think. Give me some time to think about it, okay?" Poplar Fruit's chin rested on Fong Beibei's head and gently ran his fingers through her wet hair. A faint fragrance entered his nose, like a blooming jasmine flower. "Uh-huh." Poplar Fruit responded with his nose and hugged Fong Beibei's soft body tightly. "I'll figure it out." When the two separated, Poplar Fruit said firmly. Fong Beibei walked 2 steps toward the dormitory door. She turned her head and wanted to say something. "Go back, don't catch a cold." Poplar Fruit waved at her and smiled. "The rain is going to stop, don't worry." Fong Beibei nodded and walked upstairs. After a week of outbursts, Xiao Han is also physically and mentally exhausted. There aren't many chapters left, so I can only resume 3 chapters. Xiao Han is quite loyal, right? He has never stopped updating. I don't know if there will be more outbursts in the future. Xiao Han can't promise everyone, but he will keep working hard. I hope everyone can continue to support Xiao Han and Kiki. Chapter 383. Back in the neighborhood. As soon as the door opened, Goldie, who had been cooped up in the car for a long time, could not help but jump out. It ignored Poplar Fruit and Kiki, and ran straight home from the parking lot. Because his body was wet, Poplar Fruit had been using Kiki's small blanket to cushion his butt. This time, he used it to wrap around Kiki's body to prevent her from touching his body. "Papa, you didn't take off your clothes when you took a shower," Kiki said with a grin. "Daddy took a shower?" "Daddy didn't take a shower." Poplar Fruit was still thinking about what happened just now. Kiki's words, Poplar Fruit simply responded without thinking. "Papa's hair is still wet." Kiki pouted her small mouth and said, "Kiki's hair is also wet when I took a shower." "Oh, Daddy's hair is not wet when he took a shower," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Daddy was just caught in the rain. Look, it's still raining heavily outside." He carried his daughter to the window of the parking lot that led to the residential building, and pointed outside to show her. "Why did Papa get caught in the rain? Is it fun to get caught in the rain?" Kiki curiously asked. "Because Daddy did something wrong, so he had to stand in the rain and beg Beibei for forgiveness," Poplar Fruit explained. "It's not fun to get caught in the rain." Getting caught in the rain is like Kiki doing something wrong, and Daddy wants you to stand as punishment. It's a punishment. Kiki nodded as if she understood. Her face revealed a scared expression. She pulled her father's hand, shook it, and said a little like a spoiled child. Papa, Kiki begs Bebe not to let Papa get caught in the rain. Papa, in the future, don't let Kiki stand as punishment, okay? That won't do. If you do something wrong, you have to be punished so that you won't do it again. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. So Kiki and Dad have to be obedient, right? Yes. Kiki thought about it seriously and nodded obediently. When he returned to the apartment, Song Jiwen was already standing there with his door open. Hey Lao Gua, can you look after this stupid dog? Song Jiwen stood there helplessly with his hands on his chest and said, You come and scratch my door all day long. So noisy. Poplar Fruit ignored his complaint, took out the key to open the door, and asked with a smile. Why are you back so early today? I went out with my leader to do something. When it rained, I took a taxi home. Song Jiwen put on a smile, just in time to come back and see if you brought my daughter's friend home. Poplar Fruit was going to confess today. He didn't hide this from Song Jiwen. Poplar Fruit even asked Song Jiwen, the former playboy, for advice on many of the confession procedures. What my daughter's friend? Poplar Fruit opened the door and smiled gently, neither sad nor happy. No way, did I remember wrongly? Song Jiwen went into Poplar Fruit's room. Before he went in, he closed his door. Gold jumped by his feet and excitedly ran home to roll around. It's today. Song Jiwen looked at the time on his phone, raised his head in confusion, and asked, You're so wet. Don't tell me the confession failed? Poplar Fruit put his daughter down, then shook his head and said, It can't be considered a failure. She said she would give us some time. We both need to think about it carefully. What's going on? Song Jiwen's heart was burning with the fire of gossip. He followed Poplar Fruit into the bedroom, walked out, and went to the bathroom, and kept asking. Poplar Fruit held the bathroom door with one hand, turned around, looked at Song Jiwen and said helplessly, I want to change my clothes. You have to come in too. After that, he slammed the door and shut Song Jiwen outside. Hey, don't keep me in suspense like this. Song Jiwen shouted twice outside the door, but found that there was no effect. Poplar Fruit had already turned on the shower head and was taking a shower inside. Song Jiwen had to give up. He took a chair and sat in front of the bathroom door, wanting to wait for Poplar Fruit to come out before asking. However, when he heard Kiki talking to herself with a few dolls, Song Jiwen's eyes turned, and he turned his head to Kiki. Kiki, Song Jiwen said with a smile. Do you think Uncle Mosquito usually treats you well? Kiki tilted her head and thought for a while, then shook her head and said, No. Song Jiwen was almost choked to death by Kiki's answer. He said resentfully, Why not? You see, Uncle Mosquito often buys you a lot of beautiful clothes. That was true, but most of the time, it was Kiki's godmother, Lu Suqin, who twisted his ear and forced him to buy them. Except for accompanying his sister, Song Jiwen was too lazy to go shopping himself. However, Kiki didn't know that. She thought for a while, then nodded and said, Well, Uncle Mosquito is very good to Kiki. That's right. Song Jiwen said with satisfaction. Kiki, tell Uncle Mosquito, how is your father today? Why is it raining so much? I know. Kiki said happily. Because Papa did something wrong. What did your father do wrong? Song Jiwen wanted to get to the bottom of it. Something wrong. Kiki thought for a while and said, Kiki, no, Papa made Bebe angry. Song Jiwen felt that he had dug up a big piece of information. He continued to ask excitedly, How did he make Fong Bebe angry? It's Bebe. Kiki seriously corrected Song Jiwen's mistake. Yes, it's Bebe. Song Jiwen didn't have time to explain to Kiki and asked, How did your father make Bebe angry? Because Papa wants Bebe to be his girlfriend. Kiki naively thought that being a girlfriend was something, and she said to Song Jiwen in a childish voice, So Bebe is angry. Uncle Mosquito, what is a girlfriend? Girlfriend. Song Jiwen suddenly found that he had been led into a ditch by Kiki. Kiki's strange logic and understanding made Song Jiwen even more confused. Well, don't trick Kiki. Kiki, go play. Poplar Fruit's voice sounded. He had already come out, and while wiping his hair, he walked over and said, "Since you want to know so much, I'll tell you." Poplar Fruit began to tell Song Jiwen about today's confession. Wait. Song Jiwen hadn't finished listening, and interrupted. No way she said that? 7%. 7%. Song Jiwen couldn't even remember the number after thinking about it. 78%. Yes, Bebe said it. Poplar Fruit replied. I'm going to faint. This Fong Bebe can't be a top student in the mathematics department, right? Song Jiwen said while covering his head. Yes, she's a math major. Poplar Fruit nodded and said. When he was done narrating the entire process, Song Jiwen looked up at the sky, the ceiling. He was speechless. Then he sighed. I didn't know it could be so torturous. I'm beginning to understand why you like her so much. Both of you are top students, a match made in heaven. Song Jiwen waved his hand in the direction of Poplar Fruit and murmured. You don't have to say anything, just one word, I'm convinced. Chapter 384. Poplar Fruit stood beside a chair in Yangcheng's Bai Airport's departure lounge as he helplessly watched Kiki run around him. She even hid from time to time, wanting to play hide and seek with her father. He didn't dare to sit down as he was afraid that this little girl would accidentally run out of his sight. But luckily, Kiki's bell-like laughter gave Poplar Fruit an accurate guide. Kiki herself also forgot and didn't know how to stop laughing when she hid. Yes, Poplar Fruit was about to set off again. This time, he was going to Beijing. Unexpectedly, had already started filming. Poplar Fruit delayed a few days because of his confession. Wan Hatiani also gave face to Poplar Fruit and asked the crew to delay Poplar Fruit scenes. This allowed Poplar Fruit to enjoy the treatment of an A-list celebrity. Poplar Fruit felt quite embarrassed, so the day after his confession, Poplar Fruit hurriedly packed his luggage and prepared to fly over. Ding dong. His phone vibrated in his trouser pocket. Poplar Fruit frowned and quickly took out his phone from his trouser pocket. After buying the tickets, Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment before sending a message to Fong Beibei. The content wasn't too complicated. It was more like a report to Fong Beibei that he was going to Beijing. However, it was for work. The translation company he worked at invested in a film and so on. If Song Jiwen saw this, he would definitely scold him for being stupid. Poplar Fruit also didn't know why he did this. In fact, he didn't have to do this at all. But subconsciously, he was more willing to confess in exchange for peace of mind. The previous misunderstanding caused Fong Beibei to reject him. Poplar Fruit didn't want this to happen again. After the misunderstanding, he hurriedly tried to remedy it. This time it was pardonable, but if he kept making mistakes, no matter how soft-hearted Fong Beibei was, she wouldn't forgive him. And I believe you. Although it was almost time to board the plane, Fong Beibei's message just arrived from Shanshan. However, this short reply made Poplar Fruit happy. Believe was just one word, but it was heavy. Poplar Fruit was indescribably touched. More importantly, he knew in his heart that this kind of trust was something he couldn't let down. Let's go. Poplar Fruit put down his phone and walked over to carry Kiki. His heart was filled with sunshine, and his face couldn't stop smiling. As usual, they checked in their luggage. Because Kiki had grown up, Poplar Fruit didn't have to carry a big bag to carry Kiki's milk bottle and other things. Finally, they could take the plane easily. Excuse me. Poplar Fruit took the plane ticket, squeezed through the registration crowd, and found his seat. Unfortunately, because it was summer vacation, air tickets were very tight. Poplar Fruit could only book economy class, and only got one ticket. Kiki could only squeeze with her father. Fortunately, because Poplar Fruit sat near the aisle, compared to the seat near the window, it was still considered spacious. Suddenly, a young woman's voice with a strange accent sounded in Poplar Fruit's ear. You're rich, I'll catch you inside. Can you please shout? Poplar Fruit turned his head and saw that it was a very young girl. Her looks were not bad, and she was not considered pretty, but she belonged to the delicate and pretty type. Poplar Fruit knew that she was not Chinese. Her Mandarin pronunciation was a little floaty, but she looked Asian. He didn't know which country she was from. Judging from her accent, she could be from South Korea or Japan. You're rich. The girl saw that Poplar Fruit was in a daze and didn't move, so she asked again. It was his occupational habit. Poplar Fruit woke up. He quickly stood up with Kiki in his arms and let the girl in. Thank you, the girl said politely after she sat down. Just based on her politeness, Poplar Fruit almost thought that she was a girl from Japan. However, people from Japan seemed to nod when they said thank you. She saw Kiki in Poplar Fruit's arms looking at her curiously and called out happily, "What a rich and cute little girl." "Haha, thank you. This is my daughter. Her name is Kiki." Poplar Fruit laughed and introduced her. "Kiki, you're rich. My Chinese name is Li Shishan." Li Shishan happily extended her right hand to Kiki. Kiki didn't quite understand. Poplar Fruit smiled and helped guide her. He held Kiki's little hand and shook it with Li Shishan. Poplar Fruit praised. "You speak Chinese very well. Which country are you from?" Compared to most of the foreigners that Poplar Fruit met, her Mandarin was indeed not bad. Although it wasn't perfect, the grammar in her speech was still very standard. This made Poplar Fruit a little curious. "Really?" Li Shishan asked happily. "I'm from South Korea. I'm studying Chinese at a university in China for an exchange. It's a holiday today, so I'm preparing to go home." "Then you're learning really well." Poplar Fruit gave her a thumbs up. "Which university?" "Higashiyama University?" Poplar Fruit was still wondering if he met an exchange student from the same university. In the end, Li Shishan told him that she was studying at the Guangdong University of Foreign Studies in Guangzhou. That made sense. That place had the most language exchange students. Li Shishan scrutinized Chi-Chi. Suddenly, a long string of Korean words came out of her mouth. She was talking to herself. She was talking to herself. Of course, she would not bother to translate it into awkward Chinese. However, what she didn't know was that the person sitting in front of her was someone who was fluent in more than 10 languages. Not only did Yanghua hear every word she said, but he also understood what she meant. "Why does this little girl look so familiar? I think I've seen her somewhere before? Where have I seen her before?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head, wondering if he should tell her that he could understand South Korean. Li Shishan took out her phone from her bag and started looking for it. "Where is it? I think I saw it on some social media app." "Aya!" Li Shishan suddenly screamed in a low voice. She turned around and looked at Poplar Fruit in disbelief. "Aya, aren't you Poplar Fruit Appa? Smita?" Perhaps it was because she was too excited, but Li Shishan asked in her mother tongue. Poplar Fruit scratched his head, not knowing how she knew him. He could only reply in South Korean, "Yes, I'm Poplar Fruit." Li Shishan blushed. When she heard Poplar Fruit speak South Korean, she understood that Poplar Fruit could speak her country's language, and he could speak it very well. She wanted to apologize and translate for Poplar Fruit in Chinese, but there was no need for that now. That was even better. Li Shishan hadn't been able to speak South Korean for a long time in Yangcheng. She said excitedly, "Poplar Fruit Appa, you can speak South Korean?" I'm too excited, Smita, I'm sorry. It's my first time meeting you. I'm very happy." She was a little incoherent. Chapter 385. Papa, what is Samaida? Kiki did not understand, but she accurately grasped the word that appeared the most frequently in Li Shishan's words, so she asked curiously. Samaida is a tone word in Korean. Poplar Fruit himself also realized that this explanation was too difficult to understand, so he smiled and said, "It has the same meaning as ma and I." Chi-Chi blinked her eyes as if she didn't fully understand. She asked again, "What's a stick? Is it delicious?" "Hee, Kiki is so cute, I like you so much." Li Shishan was so amused by Kiki that she covered her mouth and laughed. Unfortunately, she was not considered pretty, so the way she laughed did not make Poplar Fruit's eyes light up. This made Poplar Fruit a little worried. Didn't they say that the women in Korea were all processed beauties? Could there be a fish that escaped the net? He did not dare to say it out loud. "Oh right, how did you know me?" Poplar Fruit started to chat with her in Chinese again. "Did we know each other before? Can we speak Korean?" Li Shishan looked at Poplar Fruit pitifully and said, "It's very difficult for me to speak Chinese, unlike Poplar Fruit Appa who is good at it." "Okay." Poplar Fruit shrugged indifferently and replied in Korean. "It's like this." After switching back to her mother tongue, Li Shishan seemed to have opened up a chatterbox and happily said, "Poplar Fruit Appa, many of our friends follow your Weibo, especially the University of Foreign Studies in Guangdong Province. Many girls I know follow you, and they especially like to read your Weibo." "Ah, really?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head a little embarrassedly. "I didn't know that I was so popular." The number of fans on his Weibo was steadily increasing. If he remembered correctly, what a joke, how could he remember incorrectly? The last time he posted on Weibo, he already had 450,000 followers. Although this number was much lower than that of a celebrity, he was still considered an internet celebrity. Poplar Fruit didn't pay much attention to who was paying attention to him. But he was still flattered to be pursued by a group of young and beautiful university students. What was the situation now? Poplar Fruit pondered in his heart. Could it be a chance encounter with a fan? Next was the signature? Or a group photo? Why was she behaving like a superstar? Poplar Fruit was secretly delighted. Yes, everyone is saying that Kiki is so cute. If we can have a child as beautiful and cute as Kiki in the future, how happy would that be? Li Shishan clasped his hands and rested them on his cheeks, making a longing look. Poplar Fruit shook and almost fell down. He looked at Li Shishan with some frustration and helplessness. Li Shishan's attention was not on him at all. He wanted to cry but had no tears. It turned out that he was a fan of Kiki and didn't have any thoughts about him at all. "Poplar Fruit Appa, can I take a picture with Kiki?" Li Shishan begged Poplar Fruit with a somewhat coquettish tone. "If my Chinese friends see this, they will be very envious of my smecta." Although the limelight was stolen by Kiki, Poplar Fruit was not dissatisfied. He really wasn't a person who liked to be in the limelight. He was just a little conflicted, but Poplar Fruit was calm. He smiled and said, "Okay, it's okay. Isn't it just a picture? Give me your phone, I'll take it for you." Before taking the picture, Poplar Fruit first asked Kiki to go over. He pulled Kiki's little hand and asked with a smile, "Kiki, the sister next to you wants to hug you. Can you play with sister for a while?" Kiki leaned her head on her father's chest and turned to look at the big sister who was speaking in a strange smecta language. She shook her head decisively. Kiki was very principled. She didn't want to be hugged by strangers. Li Shishan's eyes turned. She took out a crystal butterfly hair clip from her bag and waved it in front of Kiki's eyes. She said with a smile, "Kiki, you're rich. Take a selfie with sister, and sister will give you this. Isn't that rich?" Although it was not real crystal, the texture of the butterfly's wings was clear and lifelike. Poplar Fruit could still guess that the hair clip was expensive for plastic to be so delicate. He quickly refused and said, "Miss Li Shishan, this can't be. This gift is too expensive." Li Shishan shook her head and said, "It's okay. This is my family's product. I don't need to pay for it. The gift is very small. Poplar Fruit Appa, please don't mind." So she was a rich second generation. No wonder she kept saying that she was rich. She was indeed rich. When Chi-Chi saw the beautiful crystal butterfly hair clip, she couldn't help but blink her eyes. She glanced at her father and suddenly opened her arms towards Li Shishan with a smile on her face. Principals couldn't withstand a single blow from a beautiful accessory. Li Shishan happily took Kiki over. She also kindly helped Kiki tidy her hair and put the crystal butterfly hair clip on. Kiki happened to be wearing a white dress today. With the crystal hair clip, she looked like a little princess and was very cute. "Wow, Kiki is so beautiful." Li Shishan kissed Kiki. She happily stuffed the phone into Poplar Fruit's hand and urged, "Poplar Fruit Appa, help me take a picture with our little beauty. No, take a few more pictures." Poplar Fruit also wanted to take a few more pictures. But just when he raised the phone, and before he could focus, a stewardess came over and gently reminded Poplar Fruit that the plane was about to take off. She told him to turn off his phone and fasten his seatbelt. Poplar Fruit was helpless. He could only take a picture and return the phone to Li Shishan. I'm sorry, the picture wasn't very good. How about we wait for the plane to take a picture? Poplar Fruit said with an apologetic tone. It's okay. Li Shishan glanced at the photo, turned off his phone, and smiled half-jokingly. With this photo, I can show off to my Chinese friends. Oh my god, I actually met Chi-Chi in person, and I even got a photo with her. It's incredible, they'll be so envious of me. No way. Poplar Fruit still didn't quite believe that Kiki could have such charm. He was deeply puzzled by Li Shishan's excited and trembling appearance. Of course. Li Shishan said seriously. Chi-Chi is very cute. We all like her big eyes very much. They're so cute. And Gold, Smita, we all like to have such a beautiful golden retriever. Poplar Fruit Appa, if a boy gives me a dog as obedient and cute as Gold, I will die of happiness. Poplar Fruit's eyebrows trembled stiffly. The scene of Gold sneaking behind Kiki and doing bad things appeared in his mind. His status was not as high as Kiki's, but he couldn't even compare to a dog. Sigh, I really don't understand the people after the 90s. No, it should be that I don't understand the current society. Have we entered the era of appearance? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.